Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Parallel Deku, back with another fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku's Sister Joined UA? Now before starting, please give this video a like. And subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Name, 𝕊𝕤𝕚𝕚𝕚. Age, 15. Occupation, student. Quirk, catastrophe. YN's body automatically stores energy as she uses her own. When too much energy is stored, it may release itself into a nearby fragile object, causing it to break. YN can think about or touch an object to shatter it. If the object is fragile or small, such as bones or glass, it can be broken with just a thought. Catastrophe cannot harm living beings. Family, mother. Name, 𝕊𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚, deceased. Age, unknown. Occupation, unknown. Quirk, unknown. Father. Name, 𝕃𝕠𝕠𝕜𝕚𝕚, deceased. Age, 32. Occupation, businessman. Quirk, unknown. Sister. Name, 𝕃𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚, deceased. Age, unknown. Occupation, unknown. Quirk, unknown. Brother. Name, 𝕃𝕠𝕠𝕚𝕚𝕚. Age, 20. Occupation, villain. Quirk, decay. Tenko's quirk allows him to disintegrate whatever he touches with all 5 fingers. The decay spreads quickly, affecting both organic and inorganic matter. If not addressed quickly, the disintegration can consume the entire body. Friends. Name, Yuki Haruka, deceased. Age, 3. Occupation, student, formerly. Quirk, angel. Yuki could take on the appearance of a holy being, gaining large, fluffy wings and radiating light. She could harness significant raw energy, which she could use in moments of danger, allowing her to unleash her full potential during acts of goodness. Name, Izuku Midoriya. Age, 15. Occupation, student. Quirk, quirkless, formerly, one for all, currently. Izuku's quirk allows him to stockpile immense raw power, significantly enhancing his physical abilities to superhuman levels. He can focus this power into a single body part or distribute it evenly, though concentrating it in one area puts more strain on that part of his body. He can also control the percentage of his full power that he uses. The tiny child ducked under clothing lines and hopped over spilled trash cans as she skidded through Hosu's alleyways, the barking of her caretakers closely behind her. When she rounded a corner, she sighed in relief as she desperately ran toward the busy street. Before she knew it, however, she was lifted into the air, arms wrapped around her, a sharp pain shooting through her head. YN. You need to stop running away. We aren't in the best situation to be running, the man growled. No. I won't stop. Not until you're gone, the small girl squealed as the man pulled her away from the street. She pressed her tiny hands against his large forearm, and with a loud crack, he yelped in pain, allowing her a moment to escape. The girl dashed onto the busy sidewalk and continued running. Soon, the rain began to fall. Her bare feet were sore from the constant movement. She always found herself running. Always running. She ran until she collapsed, her legs feeling heavy and unresponsive. Her eyes struggled to stay open as she drifted into unconsciousness. The tiny girl's eyes flickered open, and she jolted upright, taking in every detail of the room. You're awake, a calm voice rang through the space, causing her to relax slightly. My name is 𝕊𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚. The old woman sat down in a chair, her snow-white hair tied back in a bun. Excuse me, ma'am, the girl managed to squeak. Please call me Omoy, the old lady smiled. Okay, Umi-san. Where am I? You're in my house, dear. I found you unconscious on the sidewalk on my way home, she said with a smile. Speaking of, how did you end up there? Oh, well, my parents and brother are villains who wanted me to be one too, the small girl said, staring at her hands. I didn't want to, so I ran. A lot. And got caught. Then I did something. I don't know what, but I did it and he let me go, and I ran until I passed out. She noticed the old lady's surprised expression and hesitated before continuing. Well, dear, you can stay here if you like. The child nodded vigorously, causing the old lady to smile. You must be hungry. I'll be in the kitchen if you need me. She paused and looked at the girl. What's your name, young one? YN. Shimura. No one noticed the quiet, haired girl as she quickly walked to Aldra Junior High, the rain lightly tapping on her umbrella. She skipped along the sidewalk, her expression neutral. She loved the rain, a sentiment she shared with Yuki. At the thought of her deceased friend, she sighed and pressed onward, unaware of the tears streaming down her face. When she arrived at school, she quickly changed her shoes and stowed her umbrella and shoes in her locker. She hurried to her classroom, barely making it on time. She glanced at Yuki's old desk, where several vases of flowers rested, droplets of water falling onto the desk from a recent spray. Such a depressing day, Fang thought. I wonder what's going on with Nana. Her thoughts wandered until her attention snapped back to the teacher as he called her name. Don't you two want to go to UA too? YN looked behind her at the nervous green-haired boy sitting in front of her. Before anyone could react, my hand shot up. Yes, LN, the teacher asked. Isn't that information supposed to be kept confidential? I murmured shyly, lowering my hand and stretching my arms across the desk. My eyes locked onto him, causing him to flinch. WL. Then you have no reason to share such information, I noted, my nails scratching the surface of the desk. It's supposed to be kept confidential for a reason, right? The teacher nodded nervously, scratching the back of his head. He cleared his throat before regaining his composure. I can't believe I just did that. I mentally face-bombed as I rested my cheek on my palm, staring out the window a row away from me. You quietly packed up your things and were about to leave the class when you felt a hand on your shoulder. YYN, senpai? Yes, Midoriya? I tilted my head slightly, looking at the freckled boy. We hadn't talked much, but I had stood up to Bakugo a couple of times for yelling at him, so we had become quick friends. Thank you. For what? For taking the attention off of me during class. He fully bowed to me, causing me to blush from embarrassment. Midoriya. Please, there's no need to bow. Really? He had no right to call either of us out. I smiled, waving my hands around animatedly. Either way. I owe you 1. Or 2. Or 3. He began to murmur before I interrupted him. It's no problem, Midoriya. Sorry. You probably have much more important things than talking to me. I flicked his forehead, stopping his sentence. Calm down, Midoriya. Okay. Sorry. Also, you can call me Izuku if you want. Blushed from embarrassment. All right, Aizu-senpai. It was great talking to you. I smiled, grabbed my bag, and walked down the hall, my footsteps echoing off the walls. You had just reached the stairs when another sound began, the sound of an explosion. Your eyes widened, and you dropped your bag, racing back towards the classroom. You slammed the door open to see Bakugo and his 2 friends standing over Izuku. I studied the situation, noting how the 2 boys behind Bakugo flinched at the sight of me. I glared at the burnt notebook in Bakugo's grip and shook my head. I took a few steps forward, grabbing Izuku's hand and hoisting him to his feet. Before I knew it, Bakugo had tossed Izuku's notebook out the window with an angry scoff. I whirled around and smacked him, earning a sharp glare. He reached for me, but I had already dived headfirst out the window after the notebook. How did you manage to do that? He asked for the 7th time today. Aizu, I told you. You just jump. I smiled dully as we walked through a tunnel. I stared at my hands for a second, unsure of how I had managed to stick the landing. There was a loud crash as a sewer lid flew to the ground, and a slime monster emerged from the foul-smelling tunnel. Oh, you'll be perfect for a suit to hide in, young lady, the villain laughed as I instinctively got into a fighting position. Before he could reach me, I was pushed out of the way. I skidded to the ground, looking up just in time to see Izuku struggling against the villain. No. Not Aizu too. I won't. I leaped up, racing toward the villain. I refused to let another one of my friends get hurt. I yelled, slamming my side into him, causing the slime around Izuku's mouth to loosen just enough for him to breathe, buying him a few precious seconds. The slime attempted to grab at me, but to its surprise, I ducked and managed to reach through the monster to grab Izuku's arm. I swiftly swung him over my shoulder, sending him out of the villain's grasp and tumbling onto the ground, giving the villain a slight opening. But before he could do anything, smash! The villain was blown away by the hero known as 𝕊𝕤𝕚𝕚𝕚. After dealing with the villain, who was now contained in soda bottles, he walked over to me, placing a heroic hand on my shoulder and flashing me his iconic smile. Sorry, young lady. I try not to get civilians caught up in my justicing. But it turns out, the city's sewer system is pretty hard to navigate. He laughed, glancing at Izuku. Oof. 𝕊𝕤𝕚𝕚, I managed to squeak. He turned to me, signaling for me to speak. I ran up to him, notebook in hand. See, could you sign Izuku's notebook? I know he really looks up to you. His smile brightened as he signed his name. I quickly bowed and turned to see Izuku stirring. I rushed over to him as he opened his eyes. Wyan, senpai? Yeah. Are you all right? He jolted up. I giggled. Yes, Izuku. I'm fine, thanks to 𝕊𝕤𝕚𝕚. His eyes widened as he turned to look at the hero. 𝕊𝕤𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚. Can I get a autograph? He asked, looking around for a second before I handed it to him. He opened it and screamed. You already did? Both 𝕊𝕤𝕚𝕚 and I laughed at the fanboy. I helped him up as 𝕊𝕤𝕚𝕚 began to stretch for takeoff. Let's go, Izuku. I whirled around, only to find he wasn't there anymore. Gosh darn, Izuku! I yelled, running outside to see both him and 𝕊𝕚𝕚𝕚 in the air. I sighed and began walking home, nodding along to the humming I had started as I stared at the changing sky. It was late afternoon. Nana hadn't returned home, and I was bored. Very bored. I slipped on my shoes and wandered through the empty streets, heading towards a park. I wonder if Izuku lives around. I was snapped from my thoughts as I bumped into someone. Watch where you're going. Oh, hello Bakugo-senpai. What are you doing here? I tilted my head. Well, I was walking before you bumped into me, shorty. Wowza. That villain attack put you on edge. I smirked, walking away and breaking into a run as I heard explosions behind me. I began slowing down as I neared a beach. A dirty one at that. Then I saw something surprising. No wonder he hasn't texted me. I smile, sitting down on the top step, enjoying the sunset. I doubt anything could ruin this. Hey, Nana. I yell, slipping my shoes off. Welcome home, darling. How was your walk? The old lady calls from the kitchen. Decent. Amazing weather for it, to be honest. I noticed. Take a jacket next time. We don't need you getting sick, now do we, dearie? She smiles as she finishes cooking dinner. No, Nana, we don't. But I'll be fine. I laugh, grabbing my school bag and walking to my room. I peel off my clothes and shower, the hot and cold water feeling amazing on my skin. I sigh, wrapping a towel around myself as I walk to my room. I quickly change into my favorite leggings and a white tank top before walking into the kitchen. There's a small plate of my favorite dinner waiting for me. I scoop it up and skip to my room. As I eat, I turn on my favorite movie and manage to fall asleep to it. When I woke up in the morning, there was a small plate of eggs and a note on the dining room table. Wyan, I went out to run some errands. I'll be home when you come back from school today. Love, oh my Nana. I smile lightly, eating the eggs before grabbing my bag and putting on my shoes. Just before I dashed outside, I remembered my umbrella, as it was raining once again. I sighed as I skipped along in the rain, the quiet tapping of it on my umbrella. I skipped around a large puddle on my way to school. Today in class, Izuku could barely keep his eyes open. I kept offering to carry him home, but he apparently wasn't heading home. Oh, you're going to that beach, huh? I tilt my head. W.H. How did you know? He sputters, his arms flailing. Oh, I saw you at the beach yesterday. I got a little bored, and it was cloudy and not raining. So, I stretch, snatching my bag off my desk. Let's head out. I smile. Izuku manages a nervous smile back as we walk out of the class. Well, I'll be seeing you, Aizu. I wave. All right. See ya. Oh, before I forget. You need sleep. I smirk, unaware of the irony. You aren't All Might just yet. And with that, I turned the corner, leaving the nervous boy frightened and confused. The rain had just barely stopped as I entered the house. Nana? I call. No response. Nana? I yell again, now slightly worried. I run around the house, hearing the rain begin pouring again. She said she was running errands. Maybe she's still out. I shake my head, slipping my shoes back on, grabbing my umbrella, and heading out. Hey, Kuruka-senpai. Have you seen Nana? I question the kind, freckled girl. She shakes her head. I haven't seen her since this morning. She bought the usual and left like normal. But is she not home, San? No. Thanks anyway, Kuruka-senpai. Keep an eye out, okay? I call out. She nods, worry in her eyes. Eventually, I made it to the last stall Nana made her daily runs to. Unusually, it was empty. I felt a sense of curiosity. Curiosity killed the cat. The feminine voice of Yuki hissed in my mind. But satisfaction brought it back. I murmur, recalling my words from an old memory, one of the last days I spoke to her. I quickly skip along the shady stalls around me until my nose picks up a faint, unpleasant smell. Even through the rain, it was strong. Horrid. The only way to describe it would be. I stop and peer into the alleyway from which the stench emanated. My eyes widen as my umbrella clatters to the ground, my tears mixing with the rain now pouring on my face, soaking my shivering being. Omae-san! I cry, backing up until I hit the stone wall behind me. I slide down it, my knees drawn up to my chest, my eyes unblinking. Not again. I hate goodbyes. Not again. First Yuki, now you? Is it my quirk? My villain blood. I murmur and cry to myself for a good hour until I feel warmth. Green hair tickles my nose. YYN? Why you here? Why are you crying? He wipes my tears away with his dry sleeves. I point pathetically to the alleyway. He walks forward a few feet, then stops, running back to me and comforting me in his arms. YN? Come with me. He stands up, taking my hand and pulling me up. We begin walking and soon enough, we arrive at his house. 10 months went by in a flash. While Izuku was busy training his body for All Might's passed down quirk, I was busy training my quirk. Breaking things. Breaking things with my mind. After all, it is what my quirk does. I look at my phone. 5. Have I been training for 6 hours already? My frown deepens. And Izuku hasn't texted me. He must not be done with training yet. I begin muttering to myself, a trait I picked up from Izuku after living with him for 10 months. After Nana's passing, I moved in with Izuku and Inko. Inko was overjoyed when I did, as she already considered me her daughter. So I guess you can call me, Midoriya now. That's going to get confusing during school. I crack a smile for what seems to be my first one in months. Suddenly, the front door opens. I leap up from the bed and tumble into the living room. A messy green mop is visible on the couch. I poke the sides of Izuku, who growls and swats my hand away. Better get up, Izuku. I giggle. As I said, I don't laugh much anymore, so this surprises him. He jolts up, his emerald, tired eyes staring into mine. After a second, he pokes my cheek. Who are you, and what have you done with YN? I swat his hand away and roll away from him as he tries to poke me more. Midoriya. You just laughed. Izuku pokes my side, making me squeak and scramble into my room, but he catches me and tackles me, poking my ribs and face. If I admit it, will you stop? I manage to squeak through my laughter. He nods. Okay. I laughed. Now stop. You're killing me. He finally lets up and smiles. So you're getting better? Oh. As good as one can get after that, I say, sliding into the kitchen. And besides, you can't build a bridge if all you do is throw everything you have at the river. I smile, snagging leftover food from the fridge. Gosh, when did you get so wise? He laughs. I don't know. Guess I picked it up from Nana. I smile sadly as I take a bite of my meal. Wake up, YN. It's the day of the entrance exams. Izuku yells from downstairs. I know. You've said it like 10 times now. I yell back, sliding my socks up to my thighs and running out of my room. I quickly eat my breakfast, tap my shoes on, kiss Inko goodbye, and run out the door, Izuku struggling to catch up. By the time we reached UA, we were both out of breath. 𝕃𝕤𝕤. Isn't that Bakugo? I giggle as he threatens the extras in his way. Izuku nods and speeds past. Suddenly he trips and falls forward, but he doesn't hit the ground. I'm sorry for using my quirk on you. I just didn't want to see you fall, a brown-haired girl giggles. It's no problem. Thanks. Izuku begins to blush. I poke his side with my elbow and give him that, you like her, look, causing him to blush even harder. Isn't this all just nerve-wracking? She giggles. I nod. Why? I'm Izuku Midoriya. He smiles. I'm Midoriya, I say, nodding to the girl. I'm Ochako Uraraka. Nice to meet you, she smiles brightly. Come on, Izuku. I tug him towards the auditorium as he begins muttering. I didn't pay any attention to the speech. As soon as Izuku got up, I did too. I headed to my battle center, getting into position. I immediately run in when the gates open, the people behind me hesitating. What are you doing? There is no countdown for a battle. Go, go, go. Present Mike yells. 30. I mentally count my points as the metal beings turn to dust before me. 45. My thoughts are interrupted as a massive robot appears in front of me. Oh no! I quickly dodge the hit it throws at me, my hand barely missing its arm. Gotta touch it. Too big. I hiss unconsciously under my breath. I jump on the nearest roof using some rubble and leap onto the arm of the metal brute, quickly dismantling it, much to the relief of some people below. Oh no! Didn't think about my landing, I mutter as I begin to fall. Suddenly, I find myself in the arms of a girl with bright pink hair and skin. You good? She giggles, setting me down. I nod, trying to hide my discomfort with the social interaction. Yes, thank you. I pause, not knowing her name. Mina Ishido. My quirk is acid, she says with a big grin. Why in Midoriya? My quirk is catastrophe. I hesitate, but she seems trustworthy. Oh my god, she gasps. I flinch, expecting her to run away, but she doesn't. That sounds super cool. What does it do? I tilt my head in surprise but explain anyway. Long story short, I can destroy some things with my mind, but for most large things, I need to physically touch them. I have to think about breaking it, though, so don't worry about me breaking your arms. I crack a small smile. Wow. All I can do is shoot acid from my hands. Your quirk is so cool. Mina laughs, clasping her hands around mine. Maybe. She isn't so bad. I think to myself as we walk out. I soon spot Recovery Girl and, since I haven't seen Izuku yet, decide to ask if she's seen him. Oh yes, dearie. He's recovering right now. I walk with Izuku to Class 1A as we both enter. My mind is focused on one thing only. Would Yuki be proud? Yuki, young, Wyan, called out to the beautiful white-haired girl as she skidded away from the playground. You chased after her, quickly finding her, as her hair color and burn scars were quite noticeable. She was sitting in a tree, her knees drawn up against her chest, head resting on her arms. Yn. I scrambled up the tree and sat next to her on a thick branch. Yuki, are you okay? What's wrong? You can tell me, I said, worry lacing my voice. The white-haired girl stared at me, and a small, sad smile graced her lips. You know I love you, right? Yuki smiled. You're like the sister I've always wanted. Her smile faded when I remained quiet. That I love you too. You're like the sister I've always wanted. I murmured quietly, but I knew she heard me as she smiled brightly again. Then let's make it official. From now on we're sisters. She held out her pinky finger. We'll go to UA together, do everything sisters do. So, sisters? I locked my pinky with hers. Sisters. Always and forever. I opened the door to Class 1A, not bothering with Izuku, as he was already talking to Ochako. I quickly sat down in front of a boy with heterochromic eyes and hair. I give a quick glance at him as I pass, and we lock eyes. I stop, not even realizing I'm staring. His eyes. They're so captivating. Do you have a problem? I mutter. Your eyes, she sputters quietly. I look away, about to speak before she finishes. Are so captivating. My gaze shoots back to her, searching her face for signs of humor or pity, but all I find is sadness and something I can't quite recognize. This girl was quite different. Pardon? Mind explaining why you think so? I hiss, hoping she didn't catch my annoyance. Unfortunately, she did, as her lip twitched slightly. I'm sorry for bothering you, but I've never seen such captivating eyes. As for why I believe so? Because they're unique. Exotic, I guess you could say. Quite rare, and just as beautiful. She smiles slightly and bows. Sorry for wasting your time. She walks behind me and sits in her seat. She really thinks my eyes are captivating? Is she blind? If she's blind, she wouldn't have told me my eyes were captivating, as she wouldn't have been able to see them. Then she must not be great at finding beautiful things. I shake my head and rest it on my palm. After I sit down again, Mina comes running up to me, a red-haired boy with sharp teeth and a blonde with a black lightning bolt pattern in his hair following her. This is her. She took down the 0-pointer just by touching it. Mina giggles, drawing the attention of the entire class. Hey again, meretricious. Please call me YN. Also, there's no need for honorifics. I stare at my hands, not liking the attention. Okay, YN-chan. This is Kirishima and Denki. Mina points to each boy respectively. And nice to meet you. Did you really take out the 0-pointer just by touching it? What's your quirk? A couple more people walked over curiously. All of the questions were pretty normal, except for one. What's your bust size? A boy with messy hair had his eyes on me, slowly trailing down. At his question, both mine and Izuku's fists clench. Me, being the person I am, stood up and kicked him. The class stared in awe as the boy went flying. Gross. I growl, breaking one of the fake potted plants in a corner. Everyone except Izuku and Bakugo jumps back, activating their quirks, expecting a villain. It's her quirk, you idiots, Bakugo yells, impatiently tapping his pen on the corner of his desk. Sorry. I murmur quietly, a tiny blush spreading across my face in embarrassment. Everyone's sweat drops, except Bakugo and Izuku, of course. Bipolar much? They all calm down. I sit down, relieved to have the attention drawn off me. I begin to doze off before. If you're here to make friends, then you're in the wrong class. A caterpillar? Everyone's sweat drops. A hobo. A small smile graces my features. My name is Shota Aizawa, your homeroom teacher. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down. That's not going to work. Here, time is precious. We cannot afford to waste a single second, he growls. Now. He pulls out gym uniforms. Put these on and go outside. We all follow his directions and head outside. Then I remember. How's everyone going to react to the scar? I begin worrying as I make my way to the changing room. Maybe I can hide it? I shake my head. Not going to happen. I walk into the changing room and open one of the lockers as the rest of the girls file inside. I quickly begin changing, but the minute I take my shirt off, I feel all their eyes on me. I clench my fist and pull the gym uniform on. There's no point in staring at it. I murmur coldly and walk out of the changing room, leaving them all stunned, the tension between us palpable. YN. Izuku comes up to me, placing a hand on my shoulder. He gives me a look not pity, but mild agitation and sadness. I nod and join the rest of my classmates. He follows closely behind. A quirk assessment test? Ochako questions. What about orientation? We're going to miss it. Here at UA, we aren't tethered to traditions, meaning I can run my class the way I see fit, Aizawa growls. There's no reason to attend pointless ceremonies. For being a hobo, he's pretty smart. I shrug. Meretricious. You scored the most points during the entrance exams. How many meters was your farthest ball throw in junior high? About 43 meters, sir, I respond politely. Try it again and use your quirk. Sheet. My quirk isn't the greatest at this. I attempt to think up a plan. Anything goes as long as you stay inside the circle, Aizawa grumbles. Yes, sir, I murmur. I can try it. It hasn't worked in 4 years, but it's worth a shot. I let out a sigh. Here we go. I throw the ball in the air once, getting a feel for its weight. 1. Izuku takes a breath. 2. My feet dig into the ground. 3. Teleport, I murmur. And the ball was gone. Izuku let out a tiny gasp. Everyone was extremely confused. But only one thing on my mind was the question that was always there. Yuki, what would it be like if you were here with me? No. YN. 11-year-old Yuki calls out to the now injured HC. Her eyes flick up to the trembling girl as she feels her brother's quirk working on her back. She lets out a tiny squeak, as that is all she can muster. But unfortunately, Yuki isn't having it. She lunged at the blue-haired girl, who stumbled and fell to the ground. He grumbled something and glanced at the HC-haired girl. Hey, Mei-Mei-san. He let out a laugh. Did you see something cool? He picked up the white-haired girl by her wrist, lifting one finger off her wrist. He placed his hand on her neck and pressed down with all 5 fingers. She didn't even have time to react. She was just gone. My eyes widened as I let out a scream so piercing that the boy had to cover his ears. Then everything went dark. I am, ni. A voice responded from the back of my mind, confusing me. I'm always here. Oh great. Now I'm going insane. I walked out of the circle, not bothering with my score. I stepped beside Izuku, who seemed to be processing what had just happened, but he gave me a comforting smile. To his surprise, I returned it. I stared at the leaderboard in shock. Second place isn't bad. I shrugged. I located Izuku's name and stopped dead. Last place. I turned to Izuku, who had visibly paled. Oh, and I was kidding about expelling the person in last place. It was just a rational deception to make you all try your hardest. Aizawa shrugged as the entire class, except for Yaoyorozu, yelled in disbelief. What? Izuku visibly relaxed, and his spirit seemed to return. I am coming through the door like a normal person. All Might's voice boomed through the classroom as he slammed the door open. Even though I had seen the pro hero before, the thrill of seeing the number 1 pro hero never ceased. It's All Might. He really is teaching here. Is he wearing his Silver Age costume? Everyone in the classroom gawked at the pro hero as he let out a hearty laugh. Today we are doing. A card appeared in his hand. Hero versus Villain Training. He flipped the card over. He pressed a button, and the wall opened to reveal 21 cases. We all stared in amazement at the cases. Grab your designated hero costumes and meet down at Ground Beta. I stepped out of the locker room and walked towards Midoriya. Hey, nice costume, Small Might. I said with a hint of amusement. He looked me up and down and frowned. That's your costume? He shot me a glare. Just, you shouldn't be so hypocritical, rabbit. I poked his side. He steered away from my hand and chuckled. I guess you're right there, YN. I'm always right, Izuku. When will you realize that? I smirked, running off. W it up. He called, laughter quickly following as we raced each other towards the rest of the class. The first 2 teams will be. All Might paused, rustling coming from the boxes as he pulled out 2 spheres with the letters A and D spelled out in white. These guys. Both Midoriya and I visibly flinched. We both sped out quickly with our respective teams and into the building. Protect the bomb, Katsuki growled. No. You're going to do it. I'm not useless. I hissed, stepping in front of him. And I'm not letting you lay a hand on Izuku. In the monitoring room. What are they doing? Mina squeaked. They do know the round has started, right? Ida pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. I assume Midoriya is being protective of Midoriya, and is refusing to allow Bakugo to hurt him. That's not a villain thing to do. Todoroki flinched, memories of his conversation with 𝕊𝕤𝕚𝕚 in the cafeteria flooding back. Oh. Well, they must have been horrible people. She was silent for a moment, which unconsciously made me feel nervous, thinking I had said something wrong. Then she spoke. You have no idea, Todoroki, how horrible they really are. She isn't. Todoroki's voice was ice cold, and if looks could kill, everyone in the room would be in serious trouble. Todoroki? Someone squeaked. You're freezing the floor. He immediately looked down and pressed his right hand on the now frozen gray floor, melting the ice almost instantly. Oops, he said monotonously. Out of my way. Bakugo yelled, knocking me against the wall with enough force to make me stagger. I quickly got up, pressing my hand to the back of my head, feeling a sting. I let out a tiny sound and ran after Bakugo. I passed Uraraka and pushed past her, to her surprise. I skidded down the hallways, following the angry sounds from Bakugo as he attempted to confront Midoriya. He was about to pull the pin on his grenade before I interrupted, slamming into his side. Get the hell away from him. I yelled, my eyes shifting colors. What the hell? We're on the same team, you idiot. I refused to stoop as low as a villain to hurt anyone without reason. I growled. You shouldn't either. I turned to Midoriya and tied him up with tape, my eyes refusing to change back. You beach. Who's guarding the bomb? Bakugo yelled, pushing past me. No one, I murmured, glaring at him. He whirled around and glared at me, but before he could speak, I quieted him. Because I moved it. He paused, his glare unwavering. What? I moved it, I murmured monotonously. Looking up at him, my eyes were sharp and vibrant. Where? He growled. I shook my head and pointed to Midoriya. Sorry. Can't tell you, I replied snarkily. Several tick marks appeared on his head, and he dashed off in search of the bomb. I knelt in front of Midoriya and looked him dead in the eyes. He flinched slightly and let out a squeak. I'm in trouble, huh? Yes. I grabbed the tape and dragged him across the floor as I walked down the halls. After a minute of walking, I released the tape, causing him to fall on his back. Ouch. He looked up at me, his eyes widening. YN. Your head. Stay here. I'm going to make sure Bakugo doesn't hurt your girlfriend. I muttered, ignoring his question and his face flushing bright red. He shook his head and tried moving his arms. As she isn't my girlfriend. Oh. I stared plainly. Okay. I walked down the hall, my knuckles tapping the wall in Morse code. When I reached the room with the bomb, Uraraka had just arrived. I ran up behind her, swiping her feet from under her. YN, she squeaked. Hello, Uraraka. Pardon me. I gently pushed her out the room door. Not seconds later, I heard a titanic boom as the speakers came online. Young Bakugo. If you use those things again, your team will automatically lose. All Might's voice growled over the intercoms. I clenched my fists, tying Uraraka up and hanging her by her waist from the ceiling. I dashed down the stairs, my feet echoing through the empty halls, black matter forming in small orbs around me and leaving huge cracks in the floor where I had run. The walls now bore long, deep cracks from my sprint, but I didn't care. I skidded into the room just as Midoriya blasted a hole in the roof. I dug my heels and hands into the ground to avoid being blown backwards. Hero team wins. That was all I heard before rushing forward, throwing Bakugo against the wall and catching the collapsing Midoriya. The entire room was silent as I walked back into the monitoring room. I studied all of their faces carefully before shrugging and walking up to the railing. Alright, who's next? Izuku leaped up from the bed, running out of the room. I chased him to the classroom, where he slammed the door open, questioning where Bakugo was. Getting an answer, he ran outside to meet him. They had a meaningful conversation that I paid no attention to until he screamed at me. You knew about his quirk, huh? He pointed an accusing finger at me. Pardon? He scoffed. You knew, didn't you? He repeated. About his quirk? Oh no. Of course, I didn't know about my brother's quirk. Sarcasm and venom laced my voice. He sent me a glare, and I could have sworn I saw tears in his eyes. My eyes widened slightly, and I took a step forward. I had always hated seeing people sad. He backed up slightly, growling, "Stay away from me." A sharp pain shot through my chest, and I nearly collapsed, but I held myself steady, aware of the many eyes watching my every move. After a minute, I walked up to him, much to the surprise of all the observers, and slapped him. "Don't be petty because you lost. Be glad you have something to learn from." I growled, "You can't build a bridge if you throw everything you have at the river." The corners of my lips turned up slightly as I turned and walked past, slinging my bag over my shoulder. "Goodbye." The next morning, I woke up a bit too early, around 2 a.m. I slipped out from under the blankets and shivered as my feet touched the cold oakwood floors. I stood up and flicked on my light, blinking to clear the sleep from my eyes. I slipped on my uniform and quietly made my way to the kitchen. A few hours later, I took a sip of at least my 14th cup of FD when a sleepy Izuku walked into the kitchen, almost slipping as he opened the fridge. "I made breakfast," I murmured through my cup. He turned around the corner to look at me, his eyes narrowed. "Don't say it." "But I ate it." I smiled, setting my cup down. He let out an annoyed sigh and rubbed his temples. "Come on. It's time for school anyway." "WIT is? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he yelped, hopping out the door. I snatched his shoes and slipped mine on as I stepped outside into the cold, dewy morning. I heard Izuku's footsteps as he retrieved his shoes. "Thanks," he chuckled sheepishly, sliding his shoes on, and we were on our way. "Today we're taking a trip to a rescue training facility," Aizawa announced. "Myself, All Might, and a special guest will be supervising the trip, so be on your best behavior." His tired eyes scanned the class's excited faces, except mine and Todoroki's, which mirrored his. "You can choose whether to wear your hero costume or not. It's up to you, as some of you might not feel entirely comfortable in yours yet." He continued, "But that doesn't mean you shouldn't work hard to complete these exercises. Is that clear?" The class responded with a mass of yes and of course. We all filed to grab our cases, my mind drifting away from the current world as I traveled down the hallways and into the changing room. I ignored most of the conversation until a certain question was asked. "Who do you think is the strongest in the class then, Tsu?" someone asked. Tsu tilted her head and put a finger to her lower lip. "I would say for certain Bakugo, Todoroki, and Midoriya. Though Bakugo will never be popular with that attitude and temper of his," she croaked. "What did you say, Frog?" "I'll get you." Bakugo leaned over the back of his seat. "Tsu, you forgot, YN. Mina shook my shoulder. "Oh, well, we haven't seen as much of her quirk as you have, Mina," Tsu said thoughtfully. "There's no need to add me to the ranking. I'm just fine where I am," I murmured. To everyone's surprise, I looked up and gave them an encouraging smile. As long as we all do our best, there's no reason to rank ourselves against our equals. I agree." Izuku grinned. "Well said, Midoriya." Ida waved a hand around. "Please. YN is just fine. Right? Of course." Ida nodded, smiling brightly. "They will all make great heroes. You will too, YN, ni." The voice echoed in my head, and I became visibly panicked. "What?" I murmured so quietly that only Izuku managed to hear it. He gave me a concerned look. "Only when you look back and accept the roots from which you sprouted will you be able to bloom into the beautiful flower you were born to become, YN, ni." The voice quieted. If I were alone or with Izuku, I would have burst into tears. But that was Yuki's favorite quote. We soon arrived at what they called the USJ, or Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or what I now call the Unforeseen Situation Joint. We all filed out of the bus, the Pro Hero 13 standing at the entrance, awaiting our arrival. "Hello, students." 13 chuckled. Izuku immediately starts being a fanboy, taking notes on 13 and their costume, voice, and everything. As you know, this is the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, but we call it the USJ for short. Everyone's sweat drops. As you all know, I am the pro hero. My quirk is known as Black Hole. It can be used to help and to harm. Their tone towards the end was serious. There are some of you with the same situation as me. I swear they looked at me. So I advise you to be extremely careful when using your quirks. They pause. As you can see, there are the landslide zone in the east, downpour zone in the northwest, flood zone in the west, conflagration zone or fire zone in the southwest, ruins zone in the northeast, mountain zone in the south, central plaza, and the entrance. They finish. My instincts kick in the moment they finish speaking, and I get into attack mode, the ground beneath me cracking as spheres of black matter float around me. Mrs. Midoriya, what are you doing? 13 calls, but my feet move on their own as I dash toward the fountain. The instant my feet hit the pavement at the bottom of the steps, a purple portal opens, and villains come charging through. I hear Izuku scream my name as I rush into the fray. I swiftly duck under an arm, grabbing it and flipping its owner over my shoulder and into another thug. I take a quick breath before stomping my foot into the ground, creating a large crack. Within seconds, I had space to breathe. I glare around, and my eyes widen when I spot my brother's blue hair. He murmurs something to the now-present bird mutant. "Hello, little sister." His voice is hoarse but filled with amusement. "YN." I hear Aizawa call as I take a small step forward. "Come join us, YN." He reaches out a hand. I take a few more steps, ignoring the several voices calling me to stop. The moment I get within arm's length of the pale boy, I send a kick to his head, my fists striking him square in the gut. "I wasn't a villain, and I never will be," I retort, my eyes igniting with determination. "Oh dear. How would Yuki feel about that?" His smile widens as I shove my boot into his ribs, feeling a satisfying impact. "Numu!" Tamura yells. In an instant, my head is forced to the ground by a tremendous weight, threatening to crush me. "You were always such a nuisance," Tamura hisses, clutching his ribs as he lifts the hand that was once on his face. "Numu, return the favor." I feel a hand lift off my back, and within a second, a fist plunges into my side. I felt the moment the fist made contact with my ribs. I could sense the pain radiating through me. My body goes flying through the air, cold water splashing against me. My eyes widen as I feel the water enter my lungs. I struggle to swim upward, but the water pulls me down as if it were alive. I stare up at the surface, which is getting darker by the second. I clench my fists. I can't die like this. I refuse to let myself perish here. Suddenly, something wraps around my waist, pulling me from the water. I gasp for air the moment I hit the surface, rolling to the ground and coughing up water onto the pavement, clutching my aching ribs. "YN." I hear Midoriya scream as he rushes toward me. "Tsuyu-chan." "Thank you." "It's no problem, Deku. Also, call me Tsu." Tsuyu croaks, patting my back. Once I manage to expel the remaining water from my system, I glare at my surroundings, locking eyes with my brother. He has a devilish grin and nods towards something that makes my stomach drop. Aizawa is being held by the creature, his head being forced into the ground. Despite my condition, I rise, powering up catastrophe. I place 2 fingers on my lips and kneel down, pressing them to the ground. The earth cracks open, swallowing half of the Nomu. "Izuku!" I signal to the green-haired boy, who nods, powering up one for all and striking the bird right on its jaw, giving Tsu the moment she needs to pull Aizawa away from the beast. The creature struggles as it claws its way out of the crack in the earth. "You little nuisance!" I hear Tamura shout, his footsteps drawing closer. I feel panic rise within me, and just then, the doors slam open with a bang. We all stare up at the stairs, my eyes widening in horror. All Might isn't smiling. "Sorry, Aizawa," he murmurs, appearing beside me in an instant, Aizawa in his arms. He looks down at me. "Young YN. You and Shota are severely injured. I advise you to leave, though I understand if you want to stay." "Took you long enough." I manage to mutter as my vision blurs, and I find myself standing next to Midoriya, Tsu, and Mineta. Sensei lies face down on the floor, All Might's hand resting protectively over him. "Everyone, go to the entrance." I'm leaving Aizawa to you. He's unconscious. Hurry. Why yes sir. Ribbit. All Might. Izuku murmurs. You're an idiot if you think I'm leaving, I growl, much to Izuku's dismay. It's no good. It's no good. It's no good. The older Shimura sibling staggers, picking up the hand that was once on his face for the second time. I'm sorry, father. His breath is heavy, and he lets out a sigh. He hit me as he was saving them. It's the violence of a government official. He's fast, as expected. I can't follow him with my eyes. But not as fast as I thought he'd be. I guess it's true after all. He pauses, his bright red eyes shifting to us. That he's getting weaker. Midoriya was already helping Aizawa, Mineta grabbing his legs. All Might. You can't, he starts. That brain villain took one for all, he pauses. He took a punch that didn't break my arm, but he didn't even twitch. I send a worried look towards Izuku. He used one for all on the creature, and it had no effect. He's gotta be. All Might stops him. Young Midoriya. It's fine. He throws up a peace sign, looking more like a dad trying to be cool than anything else. Izuku takes a moment, and after letting out a sigh, turns around to face me. Let's go. I shake my head and walk up next to All Might. Not happening. I turn to Izuku, whose face is painted with severe worry. Go. I turn back to my brother, who has gotten up from his murmuring and is now glaring at the two of us. Izuku reluctantly turns around and begins walking up the stairs, Aizawa in tow. All Might and I watch as they go before turning back to Tamura. All Might gives Tamura a bright smile and jumps forward. Carolina. He crosses his arms over his chest. Nomu, Tamura says plainly, and the creature jumps to his aid in an instant. Smash. The impact doesn't even faze the creature, it doesn't flinch at all. The wind picks up around the three of us, whipping my hair around my face. The creature lets out a squawk, its eyes adjusting to All Might's face. Its arms twitch and swipe inward, but All Might leans back just in time. It seriously has no effect on it at all, huh? He stands upright again, preparing to deliver what should have been a bone-crushing strike to the Nomu. The creature swipes at him again, missing. In that case, All Might begins, landing two strong punches on the Nomu's jaw. The creature shrieks, swiping at the pro-hero again, but to no avail. It doesn't work on his face either, huh? All Might slides backward, his shoes digging into the ground to steady himself. The creature is on him in a second, delivering a blow to his shoulder. All Might counters with a punch to its gut. It doesn't work because of his shock absorption, Tamura hisses. To cause damage to Nomu, it would be most effective to slowly wear it down. Whether he'd let you do that or not is a different issue though. He smiles. I place a finger to my lips this time, pressing it to the ground. A small crevice in the floor opens up, wide enough to fit a couple of fully suited Bakugo. Tamura sees this coming and moves out of the way just before the crack. Reaches him, threatening to swallow him whole. I look up from my crouched position and see his face, no longer wearing that smug grin. It's now a mask of pure rage, one I had seen many times before. Thank you for telling me all that. All Might dodges a blow from Nomu by a hair's breadth. If that's true, then it's easier for me. He flips the creature backward, smashing its head into the ground. A huge gust of wind erupts from the impact, knocking me onto my knees and breaking holes into the cement to keep myself steady. Hey, Tamura coos. There are shouts coming from the stairs, but I don't pay attention. My eyes are on what no one else has noticed yet. Is that how it is? The Nomu is being pinned, half of it in All Might's grasp, the other half struggling beneath him. I feel rage boiling within me to the point that I no longer feel my pain as Tamura's next taunting words reach my ears. Were you trying to keep him from moving by pushing him deep into the concrete? You won't be able to stop him like that, because Nomu is as strong as you are. All Might visibly clenches his teeth, no doubt thinking of a way to escape this predicament. This is good, Kurogyri, he lets out a small chuckle. This is an unexpected opportunity. The mist man narrows his eyes as the portals slowly begin to close. The Nomu grips harder onto All Might's sides, and my rage intensifies as I struggle to contain the dark energy building within me. This is your first offense? All Might hisses through clenched teeth, attempting to free himself from the Nomu's hold. You'd better prepare yourselves. Tamura scratches his neck, sighing. Kurogyri. I do not want blood and guts overflowing within me, but I would be happy to take in someone as great as you, the mist growls, causing my rage to overflow. I feel myself rise, my eyes flashing a dangerous red, the same color as Tamura's, my hair swirling around my head. I run forward, slamming into Tamura, gaining everyone's attention. I drive my elbow into his back, and the moment he hits the ground, I unleash my destructive quirk toward the Nomu. The creature retreats, sensing the power that would have struck it, ducking back into the portal. The mist man barely has time to react as my power zooms past him, shattering everything in its path. It breaks the glass at the base, and giant cracks form beneath my feet. Izuku, who has just arrived, races toward me as I stagger toward Tamura, who is being helped up by the mist man. My vision falters, and I hear a shrill laugh before everything goes black. What I didn't know was that it wasn't Izuku who managed to reach me first. It was Shoto. It was total darkness, other than the occasional flashback to the good old days, when Yuki was still alive. After a while of pure darkness, I finally managed to open my eyes after much effort. The first thing I saw was a blinding light, which annoyed me. I sat up, looking around the room. I was in a hospital? How did I get here? Were my injuries so severe that Recovery Girl couldn't heal them? There was a click, and the door opened. A man in a white coat with raven black hair entered the room, his bright yellow eyes noting my every movement. Something about him made my hair stand on end, and I didn't like it. "Hello, YN," he said, his voice calm, though it only made me more on edge. "You've taken quite a few hits," he chuckled, flipping a page on his clipboard. "I'm your doctor, Kai. Your diagnosis was relatively straightforward, or as straightforward as it can be." He paused. "You have a shattered rib, 6 broken ribs, and a mild concussion. You got off easy, my dear." He smiled, setting the clipboard down. "Our team has taken care of most of your injuries. Your torso might be sore for the next couple of weeks, which is why your principal has informed me that you will not be participating in the sports festival next week." My eyes widened. What? Oh, I almost forgot. You have visitors." He walked over to the door and opened it. "She's awake now. You can come in." He stepped aside as Izuku rushed into the room, tears brimming in his eyes. To my surprise, Shoto followed closely behind, worry etched on his face. "YN? Why, you're okay?" Izuku squeaked, a few tears escaping. They said you might not wake up for another 2 weeks. They can't keep me down that long." I placed my hand on my chest. "Oh, what happened after my attack missed the Nomu?" Izuku and Shoto exchanged glances. You were walking back to Shigaraki, ready to use your quirk again, but your energy was already drained a lot, and I wasn't close enough to reach you," and he took a deep breath. "Todoroki saved you. Please forgive me for being so slow, YN." I couldn't help but laugh. "Calm down, Izuku. It was my own fault for being reckless and using most of my power in one attack." "Not as reckless as you may think," Shoto murmured. "Whether the attack hit or not, you still freed All Might." My eyes widened. I did." He nodded. "The Nomu released All Might when dodging your attack," he stated. "Wow. I must have been out of it to not notice." I paused. "Thanks." He gave me a curious look. "For helping me, I guess." Facing my brother was the last thing I expected at the USJ, and I kind of lost my mind seeing people I care about get hurt because of him. I murmured, "Your brother?" Shoto's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, yeah. I guess now you know what I meant by, you have no idea how horrible they really are, huh?" I let out a sad laugh. "As horrible as he is." I paused, my eyes almost overflowing with tears. "I still love him." Shoto's expression softened. "She still loves him after all that? I know it's crazy, but he's still my brother." I looked at the two of them. Izuku was now crying openly, and Shoto looked away, pained. Suddenly, the door swung open, and most of Class 1A rushed in, shouting my name in unison. Kirishima and Bakugo were a minute late, as Kiri had to drag Bakugo inside. "Hey, YN," Kiri called, pulling the furious Bakugo along. They all started talking at once, surrounding my bed, telling me how cool I was, how I kicked butt, and what happened after I lost consciousness. Without warning, Mina squealed. "When we saw Todoroki catch you, Uraraka and I immediately shipped you too." She shook Uraraka excitedly. I felt my face flush, and Shoto looked almost as red as his hair. "Emina! Uraraka!" Izuku squeaked. "What?" Mina exclaimed. "It's true. Oh, YN. You should have seen how mad Todoroki was after Midoriya managed to get you to safety." Let out a small giggle. "You guys are insane. We're all crazy here." About 5 minutes after the bell rang, I burst through the door to my classroom. "1A. All right, what did I miss?" "You're late," Aizawa growled. "That's what you're concerned about?" the class shouted in unison. "I know I'm late." "I'm sorry, the traffic from the hospital was terrible, Sensei." I bowed slightly. He scoffed. "Sit down." I nodded and headed to my seat behind Shoto. "I know you're all excited for the sports festival," he paused. "And most of the staff, including Y herself, have decided it would be best for her not to participate or attend the sports festival," Aizawa announced, causing protests to arise from the students. "But she saved All Might. She deserves to participate. She's really powerful. You can't just leave her out of it." "That's not fair. YN, why did you agree to this?" All eyes turned to me. I let out a sigh. "None of you realize exactly what the League is capable of, and if that man wants me back, then he'll stop at nothing to make that happen. As long as I'm around people in public, I'm a ticking time bomb." I growled, surprising most of the students. "Back?" Hagakure asked. "What do you mean, back?" I visibly flinched, along with Izuku and Shoto. "That's not important." Aizawa interjected. "What's important now is training. Go get your uniforms on and head to the training field." "Overhaul." The older Shimura's voice rang through the bar. "What's the status of my sister?" "She's perfectly fine. She isn't participating in the sports festival and will be kept far away from the place in general, though it would not be wise to attack, as I feel she is heavily guarded." Kai growled. "Now my payment?" The boy threw a large wad of cash towards the man with the mask, who caught it, smiling slightly. "Pleasure doing business with you." He turned to leave but paused. "What do you even want with her?" Shigaraki turned to the male. "She's a girl with an incredibly powerful quirk. Not only that, she's my sister." He responded simply. "That's it, no more, no less." Being locked away in a room guarded by some of the most powerful heroes for a day wasn't what I had in mind for my Friday. Neither was being attacked. But you know, things happen. I was watching the live feed of the sports festival through a television perched on one of the 4 gray walls that kept me confined. There was a mini fridge and stove, a door that led to a bathroom, and a couch, but that was it. No decorations, just a television mounted on the wall, which had fallen down. "Shuto Todoroki has taken first place." Present Mick's voice boomed through the speakers, causing me to silently cheer as my gaze was glued to the television. That all changed when a shrill scream pierced the air, and Mirko came crashing through the wall, collapsing onto her side. "Mirko!" I yelled, hopping over the couch to help the rabbit hero. She pushed herself up slightly, but then collapsed again, this time in my arms. "What's happening, Mirko?" I turned my head to see Gang Orca grappling with a Nomu and sending it flying. "The villains! They came for you. You need to run. Now." She pushed me away from her, but I refused to leave her side. "Mirko, we need to call for backup. Do you have any?" "Go, YN. If you get caught, it's game over," she yelled, pushing me away again. Just then, a massive figure broke a hole in the wall, just large enough for me to escape through. I turned to her, tears in my eyes, not wanting to leave the rabbit hero, but I did as I was told. Almost the second I had gotten to my feet outside the place I had once called a prison, I took off running as far away from the human population as I could. It wasn't as easy as I thought. I noticed several villains pushing through civilians, seemingly searching for me. The loud honks of cars rang in my ears as I continued running, my eyes finding a familiar, colorful building. I slipped past a fast food restaurant and dashed through the alleyways behind it, hopping over garbage bags and tins, the smell of rotten food clinging to my nose as I nearly tripped trying to navigate a corner. I neared another street, the sound of my own footsteps echoing through the quiet alleyways. You know, it's funny. I always seem to find myself running. Suddenly, I felt someone grab my arm, their hand covering my mouth to stifle my screams. "Dubby, shut her up, shut her up." A high-pitched female voice reached my ears. "Keep your mouth shut unless you want to end up like those awful cardboard chicken nuggets at the fast food place," a male voice hissed in my ear, instantly silencing me. The cold alley air nipped at my exposed skin as I stood there, completely still. "Dobby, I can't believe that worked," the girl whispered with a giggle, stepping into the more brightly lit part of the alley. She had twin messy buns on the sides of her head, blonde hair framing her face. Her vivid, wild-looking yellow eyes and sharp, needle-like teeth were framed by a constant smile. "If I uncover your mouth and you scream, you're going to regret it," he warned. I nodded, though I had no intention of cooperating. After my match with Midoriya, I didn't run into my father, to my surprise. In fact, I didn't encounter any pro-heroes. My mind wandered, searching for reasons he would leave. My thoughts immediately shifted to YN and how she was being protected. I tried to think of any reason why my father would have left after a win, especially after I used my fire side, ignoring the possibility that YN was in danger. After being healed by Recovery Girl, just before I exited the room, I hesitated. "Pardon me, Recovery Girl," I said, my hand resting on the cold metal door handle. She hummed in response, focused on Midoriya and his self-inflicted wounds, which were now returning to a normal skin color. "Where have most of the pro-heroes gone?" I asked, curiosity getting the best of me. At that, she visibly flinched. Her gaze lifted to meet mine, but I knew she couldn't read anything from my stoic expression. After a moment, she laughed, shaking her head. "You're worried about your friend, YN, yes?" she asked, making me flinch. A small heat rushed to my face, though I was confused as to why. I nodded. Just worried." Recovery Girl glanced at Midoriya for a moment, her eyes shadowed with indecision, as if determining whether to tell me or not. Her eyes locked onto mine once more, almost glowing. She was silent for a moment before speaking. "No. Everything most certainly isn't all right, Mr. Todoroki." I dashed around a corner, barely avoiding the blue flames that licked at the stone walls as I ran as fast as I could, trying to escape the now furious villains hot on my trail. Another round of blue fire shot in my direction, illuminating the walls with brilliant shapes and reflections as I continued running. Being in this situation definitely wasn't ideal, but at least I wasn't running for my life. I was. "Get back here." I heard the loud calls from Dobby as I got closer to the street. I felt something flash right beside my head. It hit the wall ahead of me with a sharp crack. I ran past the knife that now stuck out from the wall, sure that the blonde had thrown it. "YN." I heard a familiar voice, Vlad King, the Class 1B teacher, from less than a block away, his rapid footsteps racing toward the smoke rising from the now burning buildings around me. Dobby took this moment to send a shot straight at my back, sending me flying forward, crashing into a wall. Smoke filled my lungs as I gasped for breath, the sound almost like a cat's cough, sounding as pathetic and helpless as I let out a tiny squeak at the sharp pain in my back. A stinging sensation hit my lungs like a truck, the smoke overwhelming my senses. "We got her." I shut my eyes tightly, tears pricking at my eyes as the burning in my lungs intensified the longer I sat there, my back pressed against the cold stone wall behind me. I let out a small gasp as Dobby picked me up, throwing me over his shoulder and beginning to walk. The movement sent sharp pains down my spine and sides. I locked my hands together, sending cracks into the ground behind us, and to my surprise, the two villains didn't seem to notice. We finally made it to the street after what felt like years. The pain in my body became overwhelming as screams filled the air, panicking pedestrians running around, crying out in fear or loss of their homes, and children crying for their parents. Command shouts from heroes attempted to calm the frightened crowd. Mothers grabbed their children's hands and raced away from the blue flames, men pulling women away from the buildings, and pets being carried by their owners in a panic. "Keep your mouth shut or all these people die," Dobby hissed, a small, blue flickering flame appearing in his palm, sending chills down my spine as we sped along, the distant sirens and screams fading into silence. It wasn't long before I picked up on another pair of footsteps, and they seemed to notice it too, as they sped up and soon broke into a run. Within seconds, bright orange flames shot in front of the villains, causing Dobby to drop me, backing away from the flames with a grunt. "YN." I heard a loud voice boom, and the ground beneath me gave way, sending me tumbling down as blue fire shot right above my head. I barely escaped a fiery fate. "Dsmn it," Dobby growled. "Dobby, we should have taken the shorter way and dealt with those people," the blonde named Himiko giggled, a knife appearing in her hand as if by magic. "Let's finish off the girl and be done with it. Those heroes would skin us alive. Or what's left of you." I spat, climbing out of the small hole my quirk had buried me in. "Shut up and get out of here," Endeavor yelled, flames shooting by me again, flying straight toward the pair of villains. The blonde quickly leaped to the side, her grin wide, while the raven-haired one merely sidestepped, the flames diminishing within seconds. "Get out of here, kid," Endeavor shouted, sending more bright flames toward the villains, causing the air to grow warmer, or perhaps it was my energy quickly draining. "YN." I heard a voice call to me, and I turned my head to see Mirko, who seemed to be perfectly fine. Not even a second later, she was next to me, lifting me onto her back as we hopped over rooftops and buildings toward safety. It wasn't long before my body shut down, the unbearable pain fading as my eyes fluttered shut. My eyes opened to find myself surrounded by pale yellow grass, the only sound being the gentle rustling in the wind and the soft giggling of a nearby brook. It was so peaceful here. I laid back, the grass tickling my skin as I stared at the pale blue sky, small puffs of clouds drifting lazily across it. "YN," I heard a voice call from behind me. I shot up, eyes wide. Yuki's hair flowed around her, flicking and fluttering in the wind like a butterfly. Her yellow-blue eyes seemed almost glued to me, though they appeared out of focus. In fact, her entire being seemed blurry. "YN," she called my name again, some of her features sharpening. "You shouldn't be here, YN. This isn't a place for you." "Not yet." She paused. "Not for a long, long time." I felt tears prick at my eyes. "Yuki!" My feet moved before my mind could catch up, my arms trying to wrap around her, but I passed right through her, my arms catching my fall. "YN, you need to get up. Open your eyes, now. You don't belong here." Her gaze was intense as she turned to me. She collapsed, tears streaming down her face, her eyes focused on her hands. "Please. Remember, I am always with you, and don't you dare ever forget who you are and who you want to be." I felt my eyelids grow heavy, and they shut, but I managed to catch her last few words. "Don't push them away, because if you do, it will be your downfall." I shot up, tears streaming down my face. Recovery Girl stepped into the room, and I almost breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing her. "Good, you're awake," she said, shaking her head with a laugh as she walked over to the desk. "Get out of here, kiddo. I don't want any more of your friends invading my office." "How many of them came in?" I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. "Well, there were about 20 of them at one point, but 2 of them come in more than 4 times a day." She paused. "Midoriya and Todoroki, I believe. Midoriya was always in tears, and your friend, Todoroki, oh boy, he was always so mad coming in here, seeing you on that bed." I felt my face heat up. He isn't my friend." I stuttered, my arms flailing animatedly. "Now you look like that Midoriya kid," she chuckled, waving her hand. "You're free to go, but I advise you to head home." I nodded, smiling. "All right, I'll get out of your hair." I stood up, noticing I was in my regular clothes, internally thanking Izuku, and stumbled toward the door. Don't trip, she said, writing something down on a clipboard she cradled in her arm. I groaned and slid the door open, walking down the hall, but soon enough, I collided with something. Before I felt a hand wrap around my waist and another grab my forearm. I flicked my eyes open, a bright red blush spreading across my features. 𝕃𝕠𝕠𝕜𝕤. See, can you repeat that one more time, but slower? Izuku asked for what felt like the fourth time. I stood in front of him, my face almost matching the red blanket he was cuddled in, a mug of hot chocolate cradled in his hands. 𝕃𝕠𝕠𝕜𝕤. My face felt like it was on fire, and I sensed warmth radiating from his right side. He quickly helped me back to my feet, a blush spreading across both our faces. Are you okay? He murmured, looking away. I'm fine, I replied, trying to sound confident. He turned to face me, bringing a hand to my forehead. Are you sure? Your face is all red. His voice was barely above a whisper. I nodded, forcing my best smile. Why, I'm fine. I promise. I let out a nervous chuckle as his gaze locked onto mine. Are you sure? I can take you back to recovery, girl. Shoto. I cut him off, giving him a closed-eye grin. I pointed to myself, giggling, trying to instill confidence within myself, even though I knew it might backfire once I got home. I'm fine. I'll take your word on it then, YN. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly as he walked away. Just before I turned away, my legs moved before my mind could catch up. Hey, Shoto. I called, and he whipped around, a stoic expression returning to his face. Let's hang out. We can get something to eat, my treat for making you worry. He paused for a moment, his gaze sweeping across the ground before flickering back to mine. Sure, he murmured, a faint pink tint on his cheeks as he turned away, his footsteps echoing down the hall. It's not all that bad, YN. Izuku patted my back. At least you didn't K-kiss. He let out a nervous chuckle from behind his mug as he took a sip of the warm liquid. Yeah, but it's just ugh. I buried my face into the couch. I'm hopeless. Just hang out with him, YN. He smiled and set down his mug, grabbing the TV remote and flicking it on. How about a movie? Which one? My muffled voice squeaked from inside the couch. We have Aragon, Jumanji, Frozen. Don't you dare mention that cursed title in this house. I hissed, pushing my head further into the cushion. He brushed off my comment with a chuckle, his eyes lighting up. How about we watch an anime? Oh. I pulled myself from the cushion and plopped down, eyes glued to the television. What do you have in mind? Denki and Mineta were talking about one called Boku no Pico. My eyes fluttered open as the low call of Inuyasha to Kagome rang through the air. I sat up, flicking off the TV and checking the time. I let out a tiny yawn, sounding almost like a kitten, as I stood up and stretched. I shivered at the cold of the polished wood floor while I made some hot chocolate and cracked 2 eggs into a pan. There was a shuffling sound, and Izuku appeared, stealing my hot chocolate and walking away toward his room, his green locks more tangled than usual. I let out an unhappy groan and grabbed another mug to make more hot chocolate. Hey, YN-san. I heard Uraraka's voice echo from down the empty hallway as she and Ida sped toward me. Oh hey, Uraraka. I turned, waving, and accidentally cracked a pot next to me. I squeaked and stepped back, only to bump into Shoto. Oh, sorry, Sho. I smiled, trying to tame my blush and nervousness. You need to be more careful, he stated plainly, amusement lacing his voice, a small smile tugging at his lips. Oh hey, Todoroki. Uraraka wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Hey, YN. I never got to ask you what happened. You were out for like 3 days. She cuddled me close. Ida yelled, moving his arms around animatedly. That's so impolite. Reckless. Boorish, brash, careless, discouraging, rude, hasty, impolite. I trailed off, giggling. It's fine, Ida, but I can't say anything. Gotta keep it under wraps, just like Aizawa's face. I untangled myself from Uraraka's arms and continued to the classroom door, the one I had honestly missed walking through. I slid it open with a thud and tiredly walked to my seat. I pulled out mine and Izuku's notebooks and flipped to an empty page in mine, and the first page of notes I missed while I was gone in Izuku's. I slid out a red pen from the side of my bag and sighed. I began copying down the neat handwriting, and after a couple of crossed-out words and an aching hand, I finished the first and second pages of notes. Great. 7 more to go. I let out a depressing sigh, my head resting on my palm, my eyes memorizing every inch of the pen in my hand and the straight blue lines on the paper in front of me in an attempt to procrastinate. Hey! I heard a cool voice say to me, causing me to jolt my eyes up, meeting gray and blue heterochromatic ones. Shoto was sitting at his desk in front of me, his head shifted enough so I could see his pretty eyes. Yeah. I lifted my pen off the paper below it, realizing a lot of ink had soaked into the sheet and its duplicate below it. He was silent for a moment, but then continued, a small blush forming on his pale cheeks. Let's hang out. I was taken aback by his words. Though I knew he was painfully straightforward, I had never expected this. What? I sputtered, my face flushing. Let's hang out, he repeated, his face maintaining a stoic expression. Okay. Sure. I nodded vigorously, grinning from ear to ear, tapping my pen on the side of my desk. Is there anywhere specific you would like to go? He inquired, tilting his head slightly. Cute. I shook my head. Maybe a soba shop? Oh. Why don't we get ice cream? I felt my face heat up, but I nodded, ignoring the fluttering in my chest. Sure. A small smile tugged at my lips at how excited she looked. Okay, so after school then? I nodded, unable to help but stare at the way she bounced in her seat, her excitement palpable. I turned around quickly, feeling my heart thumping in my chest. I placed my hand on my chest, gripping my shirt and willing the lightness to fade. That what is happening? Your POV. Hey, Shoto. I skipped down the front steps, my hair and bag bouncing with me, the colors of the sky painting my side as I nearly tripped when I reached Shoto. He stopped walking and turned to face me, an amused look on his face. Hello. Are you ready? He asked, his eyes fixated on the blue to orange hues that painted the sky. At that moment, I wasn't sure if it was the food I ate for lunch or something else, but everything about me started to flutter at the sight of him so. At peace. I let out a nervous chuckle as we continued walking, feeling my face heat up as we headed toward our destination. It wasn't long before we reached the ice cream shop he had suggested. I walked in, giggling childishly as I stared in wonder at the pastel colors, excitement filling my veins at the sight. Almost every inch of the walls was covered in framed pictures of the family that ran the place. The wallpaper was a festive red and green, with pale pastel pink and white. They complemented each other surprisingly well. Haven't you been to an ice cream parlor? Shoto asked beside me, his voice stoic, but his eyes blooming with curiosity. No. After everything that happened, I rarely left the house, let alone went to an ice cream parlor. I giggled as we walked toward the cashier. Hello. The boy at the register smiled. Welcome to Shingansina Ice. How may I help you today? I nodded to him, giving my best smile. A favorite flavor. I turned to Shoto, shooting him a questioning look. A vanilla, please, Shoto stated stoically. The boy nodded, seemingly pleased with our options. All right. Is that it, pretty lady? He said a little too enthusiastically. I felt my breath hitch as the air around me grew cold. Yes, that's all, I said through gritted teeth. The boy handed me our ticket and winked. I let out an annoyed huff, careful not to break anything with my frustration. Shoto and I walked over to an empty booth, and I sat down on the comfortable, colorful cushion. I glared at the receipt, feeling my anger bubble over at a line of numbers sloppily written on the paper, with the name August written under it. I heard a barely audible crack and looked down, watching as a crack split down the middle of the wood table. I nearly slammed the receipt on the table, but I resorted to folding it up and tossing it instead. The slip of paper was caught by Shoto's left hand. He took one look at it, then stoically tossed the paper into his right hand, the slip immediately shriveling up, the corners turning to a frayed black as it burned to dust in his palm. When it had completely finished, he brushed the ash off his hand in disgust. His silence was deadly, and if looks could kill, that kid cashier would be in serious trouble. "Number 111, the kid called out. I stood up, ignoring the cracked table, and walked to grab our ice cream. Just as Shoto reached my side, the door slammed open, the tiny bell that signaled a customer's arrival smashing to the floor. "Everyone, get on your knees and put your hands up." Shoto's POV. I felt, whine, tense up at the voice. Her eyes flicked to mine, and panic was visible in them. I knew exactly what she was thinking, because it was the same thing going through my mind. How are we going to get everyone out of here safely? "Now," the villain snapped as everyone slid to the floor. I watched her shake hair from her eyes as she knelt down, the panic in her eyes now filled with determination and energy. I gave her another look before slowly kneeling down beside her, my arms calmly raised just above my head. "Now," the villain growled, his voice low. "Where is she?" At that, I flinched and sent another look at Wyan, who refused to meet my gaze and stared at the floor. I let out a tiny cough, and her eyes flickered to mine, her orbs burning into my heterochromic ones as she rapidly thought out a plan. He turned to us suddenly, a vicious look plastered on his face. "There she is." I shifted my eyes to my hands, frost beginning to grow along my palm. She nodded slightly and whirled around her 𝕃𝕠𝕠𝕜𝕤, whipping around her as she powered forward. The villain let out a laugh, preparing to attack. I slammed my hand down on the ground, ice sliding across the floor and trapping everything but his face in ice. He let out a hearty chuckle, a metal spine shooting out of the ice, shattering the entire block. Because of this, he didn't have enough time to block the punch. Wyan rolled in, her fist colliding with his cheek, sending him flying across the pastel ice cream parlor. "Your POV." I felt him fly backward, my quirk activating and the glass windows shattering. "Everyone, climb through the windows and alert a pro hero." I was cut off by a sharp uppercut to the gut, sending me flying over the counter, my back smashing into one of the ice cream machines. I rolled onto my back, rubbing my back as I sat up, ice cream sticking to my skin and clothes. I slid up the machine, stumbling as I got to my feet, grumbling under my breath. "Ouch." I shook my head, wiping ice cream off my cheeks as I hopped over the counter again, holding my arm. I noticed the villain trapped in ice again, an angry look on Shoto's face. The villain angrily glared around the parlor, locking eyes with the kid cashier. He smirked, eyes flashing toward mine. "What if I just—" Within seconds, he sent a couple of metal spines my way, the kid immediately panicking. I raced forward, cutting through the air and grabbing the kid by the collar, tossing him to the side, somehow only cutting myself on the shards of broken glass that littered the floor. I sped around, sending both me and the kid out the window. I set the kid down, hopping back through the window. "Help the patrons out of here," Shoto yelled, attacking the villain again. I nodded, quickly helping an elderly woman and what I assumed to be her grandchild out of the window and setting them down safely on the opposite side of the street. They both expressed their gratitude, embracing each other while I rushed back into the ice cream parlor. Moments later, a powerful voice echoed through the street as the wind picked up. "I have arrived." All Might burst onto the scene, charging towards the villain at incredible speed. Oh no, All Might's fist connected with the villain's face, sending him flying through the air. Izuku sat down on the living room sofa, rubbing his temples. "Why got hurt?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "And IW wasn't there to help you." I wrapped my arms around my adoptive brother, holding him tightly. Words were unnecessary, my actions spoke volumes. Izuku shivered in my embrace, and we settled into a comforting silence, the gentle sounds from the television lulling us into a dreamless sleep. As Uraraka, Izuku, and I hurried down the hall, our steps synchronized as we approached the classroom. My mind wandered to thoughts of Yuki, and I barely noticed when I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder. Turning around, my hair briefly obscured my view, but I quickly locked eyes with Shoto, whose concern was evident despite his attempts to hide it. "Can I talk to you?" Shoto asked. Sure. I nodded to Uraraka and Izuku before following Shudo back down the hall, weaving through students as the corridor became less crowded. What's up, Shudo? I asked, tilting my head slightly and nervously chewing on my lip. I didn't get the chance to ask you, he murmured, his eyes focused intently on mine. Are you doing okay? I nodded, unsure of what he meant. Why, if you're talking about the villain incident, I swear the cuts I got have already healed. I laughed lightly, hoping to ease the tension, but he didn't seem reassured. That's not what I meant. He stepped closer, the silence in the stairwell growing heavier. Are you okay mentally? I flinched at his words. No one had ever cared to ask me that before, except for family and Yuki. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt a metallic taste in my mouth as I bit my lip. I started to respond but hesitated. He looked at me, his eyes urging me to continue. I'm okay. Physically and mentally. I offered him a small smile, but his expression remained serious. You're lying, he said firmly, stepping closer and placing his arms beside my head against the wall, pinning me there. What's wrong? Shudo. I breathed, feeling warmth rise to my cheeks at his proximity. He sighed, stepping back and walking up the stairs towards class. Shoda Yuto. I called softly, my voice barely above a whisper. He turned to me, his hair shifting as he did, drawing my attention. Yes, YN? He asked. I hesitated, grappling with my desire to trust him despite everything that had happened with Yuki. Thank you. I finally managed meeting his gaze. His expression shifted to surprise, confusion evident as he furrowed his brows. For caring. Hey, YN. Uraraka called out as she ran up to me after class, her hands clenched into cheerful fists. Want to eat lunch with us? Don't I always? I replied, puzzled by her enthusiasm. Good. Now help us convince Todoroki to join us. She grabbed my hand and pulled me from my seat, dragging me out of the classroom. My bag tumbled to the ground behind me as we raced down the empty hallway. W8. My bag. I yelped, trying to keep up with her, but I soon gave in as I noticed Izuku wasn't coming to my aid. Here. A voice murmured, and I looked up to see Shudo placing my bag next to me as he sat down beside me, the sound of his tray sliding onto the table breaking my thoughts. But my bag. Thanks, Shudo. I giggled, scooting over to make room for him. Uraraka, Ida, and Tsuyu stared in shock at Shudo's willingness to sit at the table without any persuasion. No problem, he replied with a slight smile. You know, I was still in the classroom when you pulled her away, Uraraka. Uraraka stammered, my glare making her fidget. Ida chuckled as he finished his meal, patting her back. Sorry, YN, she said nervously. You will be, I teased as she began to panic. But seriously, we need to prepare for those exams. I took a bite of my favorite lunch. Well. If it isn't Class 1A. Having trouble with the exams, Monoma began, only to be interrupted by Kendo, who swiftly karate chopped him in the back of the neck. Sorry about him, she giggled, tossing him over her shoulder. One of my third-year friends said they fought robots during their exams. Monoma protested, anger evident in his voice. Kendo, that was our advantage. It's not like it's much of a secret. She smiled at us as she walked away, Monoma grumbling behind her. I'll see you around, Hero Course kids. After she left, I turned to the rest of the group, a mischievous grin spreading across my face. I like her. All right, that's it for class today. There's only 1 week left before your final exams begin. I'm sure you're all studying constantly, right? Aizawa said, tapping papers on his podium and carefully shifting them into place. Don't forget to keep training. The written exam is only one element. There's also the practical portion to worry about. He looked over his shoulder and gave a serious glare. Good luck. He growled, sliding the classroom door closed. I've barely taken notes this semester. Denki and Mina shouted in unison, though their emotions were completely different. And with the sports festival and internships, I didn't have time to read the textbook. Denki gripped the sides of his head. It's true that we haven't had much free time lately, Tokoyami muttered. We barely learned anything when we took our midterms, so they didn't seem that hard, but I'm kind of worried about these, Sato began, with Kota nodding along. We've been through a lot, and they probably won't go easy on us when it comes to testing. As someone ranked in the top 10, I'm not that concerned, Mineta bragged, causing Denki and Mina to start yelling. I shook my head with a giggle, staring blankly at my notes. Ashido, Kaminari, we've still got time to study. That way, we'll all be able to go to training camp together, right? Izuku clenched his fists, his face lit up with determination. As class rep, I have high hopes we'll make UA proud. Ida exclaimed, raising his braced hand, which made me giggle as I watched the scene unfold. Oh, the struggles of my classmates. It's pretty hard to fail if you just pay attention in class, isn't it? Shudo stated calmly, walking up beside me. Denki grabbed his chest, almost looking like he was going to be sick. Why you gotta cut me down like that? He gasped. Momo raised her hand, a smile on her lips. Hey, don't worry about it, you two. I can catch you up on the important topics if you want, she said, placing a hand on her chest as she spoke. You're the best, Momo. Denki and Ashido screamed at the same time, their relief evident in the room. I'm afraid I won't be any help when it comes to the practical, though. She pouted, a sad aura surrounding her, which made me giggle and stand up to give her a side hug. Why don't we all do a study group, Momo? I suggested, smiling brightly. Yeah, could you help me out too? I've been studying, but I'm having trouble understanding quadratic functions, Kyoka chuckled, scratching the back of her neck. Really? Momo asked, almost as if she didn't believe she was useful. I released her from the side hug and sat in the empty desk in front of hers. I nodded, smiling. Tutor me, please. Classical Japanese is killing me. Siro whined, his hands pressed together in an attempt at begging. Is there room for one more? Ojiro tilted his head, nervously raising his hand. I'm afraid I'm falling behind a little, he explained. They all gathered around her desk, nearly blocking her from my view. Pretty please, all three of them begged in unison, and her eyes lit up, a gasp escaping her lips. This is wonderful, she shouted, jumping out of her seat with her arms in the air. Let's do it. The students around the classroom cheered in unison, hoorays, and happy hoots being passed around by those for whom studying was almost as necessary as breathing. Okay, we can hold the study party at my place over the weekend. She folded her hands together as I turned and began jotting random notes down, ones that I had either a vague memory of or just notes to self. I eventually zoned out of everything around me and was oblivious to someone trying and failing to gain my attention. Someone grab her attention. Ashido giggled from across the class. Izuku immediately backed up while Bakugo just leaned against the wall, an amused look on his face. Someone tapped my shoulder, snapping me from my daze. I immediately grabbed the hand, sliding my chair back. The person lost their balance due to the chair, and I accidentally flung them over my shoulder, causing them to crash to the ground. I looked at my attacker, familiar black hair and awkward elbows coming into view. Sorry, Siro. I yelped, rushing to help the black-haired male. He let out a nervous chuckle as he accepted my hand, allowing me to pull him up. Is there something you needed? I questioned. We wanted you to join us, YN-chan. Momo called. Sounds like I should be studying with her, Kirishima said, sweat dropping. You think I don't know enough? Maybe I should beat the lessons into your skull, Bakugo growled, glaring down at the floor in annoyance. I'm counting on it. Kirishima muttered. I turned to Momo, giggling. Sure, I'll join you. I'm really only having trouble with the math, though I keep getting a few symbols in ancient Japanese mixed up. Hey, YN, Shudo called quietly as I began walking out of the school, a chill breeze blowing my hair around my face, much to my annoyance. I brushed my hair back, tucking it behind my ear as I turned to Shudo. Hey, what's up? I asked as he reached me. Are you busy this Friday? He asked, beginning to walk with me. I looked at him in surprise but shook my head. Izuku and I were most likely going to be watching anime and studying. I smiled, already able to taste my favorite snack. He nodded. Aren't you and Izuku siblings? I nodded again, giggling. The one and only. I smiled, pointing to myself with a toothy grin. We've been close ever since we were kids. I began to turn away, noticing his footsteps had stopped following. I turned to him. I turn here, he explained, but opened his mouth to speak nevertheless. He was silent, but eventually, a voice escaped his throat. Would you want to study? With me? Alone? On Saturday? Is that your way of asking me out, Shudo Todoroki? I tilted my head, my heart beginning to race, butterflies replacing my insides. He hesitated, a hint of pink flashing on his cheeks. Because if so, I smiled, turning away. I would love to. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the landscape, the air was filled with a sense of anticipation. The characters gathered, their hearts racing with excitement for what was to come. They exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them, each one feeling the weight of the moment. In the midst of their preparations, the atmosphere crackled with energy. Laughter echoed as they shared stories, their bonds growing stronger with every word. There was an unspoken promise in the air, a hint of adventure that awaited them just beyond the horizon. As night fell, the stars twinkled above, illuminating their path. They stood together, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by their friendship and determination. The journey had been long, but they knew that together, they could overcome anything. With hearts full of hope and courage, they took their first steps into the unknown, ready to embrace the future that awaited them. Chapter End 6. Whattimeisit? I woke up to Izuku poking my face nervously, murmurs escaping his lips as I pulled the blanket over my head to escape the intense contact. Go away! I protested through the blanket. Todoroki's on his way, YN. Izuku seized the blanket, pulling it off me and exposing my skin to the chilly air. Why, you might want to get up. He shifted, starting out of the room with my blanket in hand, prompting me to get out of bed. I slid off the bed like a penguin, hitting the floor with a squeak. I clutched my bedside table and dragged myself to my feet, fiddling with my messy hair before I began to brush out the knots, strands of 𝕊𝕤𝕤𝕤 coming loose. Tossing the brush into one of my dresser drawers, I grabbed a fresh pair of clothes and tied up my hair before changing into a pair of overall shorts and an FC, sleeveless turtleneck. I spun around, running out into the hallway in search of my blanket. I found it, snatching it from Izuku's grasp as he focused on what I assumed was breakfast. He yelled something before sighing and returning to his cooking. I slid into my room, gripping the doorway to steady myself as I tossed one side of my FC blanket over my bed, allowing it to float down and rest itself on the bed. I folded the edges neatly, ensuring both sides were of equal length before turning to check that the rest of my room was clean. The walls were a pale tan, with a large white desk holding a television and speakers on either side. My walls were mostly bare except for a few posters of my favorite band and one of my favorite hero that I had bought. My dresser was neatly positioned against the wall beside my closet, and my bed was just a few feet away. On it lay a few figurines of my favorite hero that Izuku had gifted me, which I cherished. I shook my head with a sigh, realizing I had made sure it was tidy last night. Plopping myself on my bed and dragging my bag out, I grabbed my notes and a few textbooks to start studying early. Not that it mattered, as when I finished reviewing the first page of notes, there was a soft knock at the door. I looked up from my studying, the sweet voice of Inko greeting the visitor slipping under my door. I smiled, a small giggle escaping me as Inko complimented Shudo before instructing him towards my room. I shook my head and continued to study before I heard a gentle knock on my door. Come in. I paused, saving my page in my notes. Shudo, being as quiet as he is, was already in the room when I looked up from my composition book. Good morning, Shudo. It's 2 in the afternoon, Shudo commented, silently making his way across the room and pulling a few books from his bag. My eyes widened. It's 2 in the afternoon? I shook my head, unsure whether to be surprised or disheartened, patting the empty spot on the floor beside me. He didn't hesitate to fill it, taking out his own notebook along with his textbooks. Yes, he said plainly. Where do you want to start? Maybe quadratic functions or calculus. Math isn't my strong suit. I scratched the back of my head nervously. He nodded, flipping to a page in his own notebook. Scanning them quickly, he turned to me. In algebra, a quadratic function, a quadratic polynomial, a polynomial of degree 2, or simply a quadratic, is a polynomial function with one or more variables in which the highest degree term is of the second degree, he explained. Now that's much easier to understand than what they taught us, I exclaimed, taking quick notes on his words. It's almost exactly what they told us, YN. Shudo's POV. Just before I could alert, YN, that I was finished with the current chapter, I noticed soft snores from beside me and turned to see her cheek resting on the side of her bed while a book still sat in her hands. I smiled softly, pushing a few books out of the way as I stood up and gently wrapped my arms around her, picking her up and laying her down on the bed. As I knelt down to begin packing up my books and notes, she let out a soft whine. I looked up, watching her brows furrow as she gripped the covers. She flinched slightly as I pressed a hand to her forehead. Is she sick? Sad? Is she even awake? My mind raced to find a reality to the situation before me, not knowing what to do. I mentally panicked as I watched her hand reach up, shakily grabbing my wrist. I felt myself flinch, watching her cower under my touch. Without thinking, I did the most logical thing I could think of and wrapped my arms around her waist, pulling her towards me and sliding down the bed until my back met the floor. I placed her head on my shoulder and held her steadily, rubbing comforting circles on her back. She gripped my shirt, her shaking slowly subsiding along with her breathing. I let out a tiny sigh of relief as her trembling came to a full stop. She cuddled into my chest, causing my heart to race. I rested my head on her shoulder, allowing my own breathing to settle, my eyes closing slightly as I eventually fell into a light sleep beside the girl who had captured my heart. I slid in beside Izuku and Uraraka, a playful smile on my adoptive brother's face as he turned away from the already blushing brunette. Hey, I grinned teasingly. What were you two talking about? Izuku immediately began waving his arms around, his face turning bright red. It's not like that, he defended as we walked into the classroom. I noticed Shudo sitting at his desk, his nose buried in the numerous pages of internship opportunities he had received during the sports festival. Of course, my absence meant I was automatically excluded from the internships. It gave me an entire week to relax and do whatever I wanted before returning to you. Shudo glanced up slightly as I approached him, peering over his shoulder to read the small print. I noted several well-known heroes like Midnight and Edgeshot. He shifted the paper just enough for me to see the rest of the list. I looked at him, silently urging him to flip to the next page. He complied, turning to the next page in the pamphlet. Once again, I scanned the familiar names. I made a small sound at the sight of his father's hero name written down. He followed my gaze, an unsurprised look crossing his features. I sighed, leaning back in my seat and tapping my pencil on the corner of my desk. Shudo glanced over his shoulder, seemingly puzzled by my sudden frustration. Is something the matter? He asked, taking a moment to organize the stapled papers. I shook my head, laughing lightly. No, nothing. Just. I clicked my tongue. It unnerves me that Endeavor offered you an internship. I murmured, resting my head in my arms. My hair curled over my shoulders. It's counterproductive, and there's no way you would. I looked at him, my eyes intense. No, you would. He was quiet for a moment before he nodded. Yes. My father's offer is probably the best opportunity one have to learn how to control my fire. My eyes widened in surprise. You're willing to learn? I asked, smiling slightly. As long as you're happy with your choices. I'm glad you're taking the steps to accept who you are. My mood lifted, a smile brightening my face. If this is what you want, I support you all the way. I slammed my hands down on the desk, standing up with a big grin. Shudo felt his heart race. The determination in my voice and my excitement made his heartbeat pound in his ears. His face began to heat up, and he couldn't help but look away. A sudden shyness stirred in his stomach, causing a blush to rise on his cheeks. To his surprise, small sparks of flame flickered on his uniform. 𝕊𝕤𝕤𝕤, you're on fire, I squeaked, patting out the small, hot flames that had ignited on his uniform. His expression blanked for a moment as the blush on his face slowly faded along with the flames I extinguished from his shoulders. Are you okay? I asked, sitting back down. He nodded, avoiding my gaze. Yeah, I'm fine. I nodded back. The bell rang, and the rest of the unseated class hurried to their empty seats just in time. 𝕊𝕤𝕐𝕐 burst through the door and began discussing our internships. 𝕊𝕤𝕐𝕐 called, snapping me out of my daydream as I followed Izuku out of the class. Stay for a second. He slumped into the chair he now occupied. Sure. I turned towards Izuku, waving slightly before making my way back into the classroom. Is something wrong, Mr. 𝕊𝕐𝕐? He narrowed his eyes slightly. I'm sure you're aware of the lack of internship opportunities, he said. So, just to ensure your safety, I wanted to offer you an internship with Shinso and me. My eyes widened slightly, unsure of how to respond. Thank you, Mr. 𝕊𝕐𝕐. I smiled gratefully. Honestly, the internships had been a source of anxiety for me. I worried about falling behind while my classmates trained to become better heroes. Don't thank me. Todoroki was the one who suggested it, he said, sliding a paper towards me. He reminded me of your absence at the sports festival. Sorry for overlooking the details, but now I would like to offer you a place beside Shinso. I nodded, my excitement building. Yes, sir. It's really no problem and thank you so much. He merely smiled and waved me off, reminding me to retrieve the application paper from the teacher's lounge. I nodded, running out of the now empty classroom and toward the lunchroom, preparing all the words of thanks I could deliver to Shudo. I watched YN dash into the cafeteria, excitement clearly coursing through her as she nearly tackled Todoroki. Shudo. Thank you, she squeaked, hugging him tightly. His face went momentarily blank, his brain processing what was happening before he turned a deep shade of red. Yeah. No problem, YN. A soft smile appeared on his lips, though he tried to hide the blush. Uraraka glanced at me, grinning slightly at the sight of the pair. I nodded, remembering how just days before, I had found them wrapped in each other's arms. The sight of them together only reinforced the feelings both seemed to have for one another. Perhaps it was just my imagination, but Todoroki and YN seemed to grow closer as the days turned into months. I continued eating, watching them chat with the rest of the group. Hey guys. YN smiled brightly, glancing at Todoroki. Have you figured out who you're going to be interning with? I nodded, a small, nervous smile on my face. Yeah. Someone named Gran Torino. Gunhead. Uraraka exclaimed. I realized with my fight with Bakugo that I still have a lot of physical training to do. Her excitement was contagious, and I could only imagine how thrilled she was to have the opportunity. Manuel, Ida replied stiffly. My mind raced, knowing Manuel's hero agency was in Hosu, the city where his brother had been attacked. YN seemed surprised by his choice, as I had informed her of the news when she returned home. Manuel had an unnamed water quirk and was a well-known hero around Hosu. Sue placed a finger to her lip. Karo, I'm interning with 𝕊𝕐𝕐, the seal hero, she said, bubbling with excitement. I remembered the entry in one of my journals about 𝕊𝕐𝕐. His quirk was seal, he could do anything a seal could do. Shudo paused for a moment before responding to YN's question. Endeavor. My eyes widened, and I knew he noticed my surprise. YN seemed unfazed, though I suspected she had known all along. What about you, YN? I asked, unsure if she had even received an opportunity due to her lack of participation in the sports festival. She looked up at me, her eyes sparkling. Thanks to Sho, I was offered an internship with Aizawa-sensei. Shudo. Your footsteps were muffled by the crowd of students and pedestrians waiting for their train, a mere speck in the sea of chatter. YN. Todoroki turned around, his heterochromatic eyes locking with your EC ones. What are you doing here? Aren't you interning with Aizawa-sensei? He asked, clearly glad to see you. You wrapped him in a hug as you reached him. Can't a girl see her best friends off? You laughed, feigning indignation. I won't see you guys for another week. You hugged Izuku, surprising him. Hey, YN. He stammered, a bead of sweat rolling down his face. I'm sorry I left you this morning. Uraraka and I were going to try and catch up with Ida Dash. Hey YN. Uraraka chimed in, jumping into the hug you offered her. After what happened in Hosu, I'm really worried about his choice of internship. Who is he interning with? You asked, releasing the brunette. From the way you talk about it, it must be a hero in Hosu. Your assumption was confirmed as Izuku nodded. Yeah. He's interning with Manuel. Izuku reported. Having spent countless hours with the nerd before you, it was clear you had picked up a lot of information about heroes. The normal hero, Manuel. He was a hero with an unnamed water quirk, not very well known. Given the location of his agency, it wasn't surprising to hear that Ida had quickly added Manuel to the top of his internship list. You sighed, ruffling Izuku's fluffy green hair. I'm sure he'll be fine, guys. Ida's smart. Sure, he's family-oriented, but there's no way he would put himself in danger to track Stain down. Why yeah, I guess you're right. Izuku muttered. The uncertainty in his emerald green eyes didn't go unnoticed by you. If he does, then will be there to back him up, right? You nodded, a feeling of dread filling your stomach as Shuto mirrored your movements, assuring your adoptive brother of the protection he was willing to offer the blue-haired hero in training. The train roared into the station, silencing any conversations your group had. Izuku looked over at you, and the two of you shared a hug. I'll miss you, bunny boy. His face contorted into a frown, though it quickly turned into a bittersweet smile. If you get hurt, YN. If you get hurt, Izuku. He sighed, his eyes on the train. I guess this is it. You act like you're going to war. For all we know, I could be. His words triggered something within you, but you quickly pushed the tears down. Don't say that, Izuku. You're going to do amazing. Maybe even learn something new about your quirk. In truth, you doubted you could bear to lose someone else, especially Izuku. Just the thought of seeing him hurt made your head spin, and it was clear to Todoroki that your thoughts were racing. He had little idea about your past, but the lack of shine in your eyes was concerning to him. Deku, we gotta go. Uraraka called. He jumped, giving you one last hug before running onto the train. Bye. Love you. He waved, his curly hair quickly hidden by the rush of passengers boarding. You were silent, his solemn words echoing in your mind. Your gaze drifted to the ground. A hand on your shoulder snapped you back to reality. You looked up to see Shuto's familiar heterochromatic eyes. My train won't arrive for about another hour, he said. Since I have some time, would you like to join me for food? You almost laughed at the seemingly regal proposal. Is Shuto Todoroki asking me out? You couldn't help but chuckle at the way his face turned red. Oh, of course not. I just thought you might be hungry. He scratched the back of his head, trying to will away the blush on his cheeks. I'm just teasing you, Sho. Yeah, let's go get something to eat. You smiled. There's an amazing favorite food place just around the corner. Yuki and I used to go there all the time. The memory of the white-haired girl made your heart ache, and it wasn't easy to hide. Shuto noticed the change in your demeanor. I'm fine with anything, he stated stoically. As long as you let me pay. You shot him a side glare but sighed. Okay, sure. Honestly, you were exhausted. Training had become much more stressful than you expected. Having to constantly watch your back during the rare moments you were left alone made privacy hard to come by. As the two of you walked out of the train station, you felt a wave of gratitude toward the boy beside you. After a brief silence, you decided to break it. Hey, Shuto. He hummed, his eyes shifting from the clear blue sky to meet yours. Thanks. You smiled, closing one eye playfully. He nodded, his gaze drifting away as you both crossed the street. Finally, you arrived at the restaurant. Todoroki observed everything with curiosity in his heterochromatic eyes as you stepped inside. The cashier looked up from her register, her vibrant purple eyes sparkling. Wyan, it's been quite some time. Suki. Hey. You rushed to the counter, leaning over the polished marble to embrace the purple-haired girl. How have you been? Does 𝕃𝕚𝕚 still work here? Are you both okay? After the loss of Yuki, you had avoided returning to this familiar place. Everything still looked the same, stirring up a wave of nostalgia. The walls remained the same pale olive green, and the familiar pictures of the family who owned the restaurant hung above the door, creating an archway of memories. 𝕃𝕚𝕚 was attacked on her way home a few weeks ago, Suki informed you, and your heart sank at the news. She won't be coming in for a few more weeks while she recovers. 𝕃𝕚𝕚 was a sweet girl, though not the brightest. Her quirk was goldfish, which explained her occasional confusion. With her orange hair styled in a slant and large fins framing her face, she was always a cheerful presence. Why would anyone want to harm her? Do we know why? You asked, noticing that Todoroki had taken an interest in the conversation and was standing beside you, listening intently. No. The police and the boss haven't shared any details. Suki's shoulder-length purple hair bobbed as she spoke. It's frustrating. The boss knows how close we all are. You nodded in agreement. Even when you and Yuki were regulars here, 𝕃𝕚𝕚 and Suki were nearly inseparable. They often spent time together at arcades or restaurants. Anyway, the usual? Suki asked, her cheerful demeanor returning slightly. Your favorite dish still, right? You smiled and nodded, glancing at Todoroki. What do you want, Shudo? Suki's eyes widened as she recognized him. Oh, I know you. You're the guy who had a tough time at the sports festival, right? She chuckled, watching as his expression narrowed slightly. Suki. Shudo did great, you interjected, playfully nudging her arm from over the counter. Cold soba, Shudo replied, sliding a $100 bill onto the counter. Suki stared at the money in awe for a moment before opening her mouth to explain that they didn't give change for such large bills. Keep the change, he said, his tone casual. With that, the atmosphere lightened, and you felt a sense of comfort in the familiar surroundings, even amidst the shadows of recent events. You whirled around, slamming your elbow into the figure behind you. He grunted, rolling to the side and swinging his legs under yours. You let out a surprised squeak, tumbling to the ground. The figure swung at you, but just before his fist made contact, you grabbed his arm and flung him over you. Both of you were breathing heavily as Aizawa stepped back inside the ring. You both did great. Shinso let out an annoyed growl. This isn't fair. She's part of the hero course, Shinso panted, pushing himself to sit on his knees. You sighed, pushing yourself up to sit beside him. Just because I'm in the hero course doesn't mean anything. Language, Wyan, Aizawa said sharply. What? If Bakugo can curse, why can't I? You yelled, getting to your feet. Aizawa sighed. You're certainly not Bakugo. He held out a hand to his other intern, who grabbed it, allowing the tired-looking teacher to pull him up. Well, what are you doing here, Aizawa-sensei? You asked, oddly curious. He had told you both that you had the entire day to spar, so you were gladly taking advantage of it. He had mentioned taking a nap, but that obviously wasn't the case. I thought you were sleeping? Quite the opposite, he replied in that same sleep-deprived voice. Sorry for the short notice, but we're going on patrol. Excitement bubbled in your stomach at his words. This was something thrilling for you, especially after being cooped up for the past few months. Really? You asked, almost not believing him. Yeah. Hurry up and suit up before I change my mind, he said, leaving you and Shinso to your own devices. You jumped out of the sparring ring and ran out the door, nearly slipping past it and into a wall. Grabbing the door frame to steady yourself, you slammed the door open, not caring about any potential damage. You changed quickly, adrenaline pumping through your veins. You skidded out of your room, unable to stop yourself from colliding with the hallway wall just beyond your door. Groaning, you closed your door and rubbed your now sore forehead before taking off down the hallway again. This would be wonderful. Finally able to let loose for once. You could hardly wait to tell Shudo all about what would happen that day. Much wasn't to be expected, of course. The city wasn't crawling with villains. There were crooks, perhaps, but most were smart enough to know how many heroes roamed the streets unseen, hidden by the shadows they once occupied. Catching your breath, You slid in beside Aizawa as he waited lazily by the lobby doors, his usual attire all too familiar. Minutes later, Shinso walked into the lobby, his surprisingly tactical hero suit equipped. "Let's get going. My cat will throw a fit if I'm not back in time to feed her," he said, sounding almost wary of his own fluffy feline. The warm afternoon sun streamed through the uncovered windows. "You two get ready," Aizawa said, a hint of caution in his voice. "Because for all I know, I could be dragging you into a living nightmare." As Aizawa hopped along the rooftops ahead of you, you stayed beside Shinso, ducking behind signs and hopping across the rooftops of local stores, some of which you were familiar with. Evening crept in, pinks mixing with the multitude of oranges and yellows that blazed in the sky. Shinso blended in well below, though after a few seconds of observing him, it was clear he was a hero. Your eyes glided over the sea of civilians going about their daily lives, children running along the sidewalk while their mothers chased after them. Friends chatted at outdoor tables, cups of who knows what in their hands. They dared not think of the dangers that may lie just out of sight. Aizawa fell into place beside you, his black eyes watching Shinsu's every move with caution. "Anything ahead, Eraserhead?" you asked, hopping over the ledge of a taller building and rolling onto the flat rooftop of another. "Not as far as I can see, but keep your eyes peeled," he replied, sliding his goggles up to rest on his hairline, the glass reflecting the setting sun. "You never know." You continued on your way until the buildings became unclimbable for you. You slipped into the crowd, tailing behind Shinso as the throngs of people began to thin out. After a while, you noticed a peculiar person seemed to be trailing you and Shinso. You began to walk ahead of him, the young hero shooting you a look of pure confusion. Aizawa seemed to have spotted the supposed stalker too, relaying the message to the oblivious Shinso. He pulled out his phone as Aizawa's voice connected into both of your earpieces, instructing you both to turn in separate directions. Making do with what you had, Shinso turned into a side street while you continued along the main path. The pursuer didn't falter, his gaze locked onto you. Unfortunately, a crosswalk appeared before you, and perhaps you were too lost in thought to notice. You pressed the button, your heart racing as the man was now just beside you. Every second felt like an eternity as you both waited for the light to change. When it did, the man continued forward, not sparing a glance toward you. You followed behind him, turning into a side street and finding your way onto the shingled roofs. Before you knew it, evening had morphed into a cold night, the sky dark with clouds and deep blue hues. You flung yourself onto the roof of a familiar ice cream parlor where Aizawa awaited your return. Shinso sat beside him, drawing on the concrete roof with a lone rock, his expression bored. "Are we done for the night?" you asked, kneeling down beside Shinso. Your mind was still on the unknown figure that had been following you. Aizawa nodded, looking over the side of the building. Almost on cue, the older hero's phone rang. As he answered it, you allowed your mind to wander to your surroundings as the lights of houses flickered off, those locked away in their homes retiring for the night. "What?" Aizawa's voice snapped you away from your unfocused thoughts. "They did what?" The obviously irritated teacher hung up on the caller, his eyes almost challenging himself to throw the device. "Eraserhead? What happened?" Shinso asked, curiosity evident in his tone. "Hosu was attacked." You felt your stomach drop, knowing Ito was supposed to be interning in the city full of trouble. "Nomis everywhere." "Is everyone okay?" you asked, urgency creeping into your voice. He sighed, rubbing his temples in agitation. "Buildings destroyed, and as far as I know, no fatalities." He paused before continuing. "But Ida, Midoriya, and Todoroki managed to defeat the hero killer, Stain." "They did what?" "Hospital visit. Nurses called your name as you rushed down the hospital hallways, eyes flickering from room number to room number in a desperate attempt to find the one labeled one. The numbers and doors sped past you, becoming almost unrecognizable from how quickly you were moving. Whirling around a corner, your eyes caught sight of the familiar letters the receptionist had provided when you first arrived. Taking a deep breath, you knocked on the door. "See, come in." Izuku's familiar, cheerful voice invited you inside. Slamming open the door, you glared at the trio inside. Immediately, Izuku opened his mouth in an attempt to defend himself. Wyn. Before you do anything rash, just listen. He sputtered as you strode in, the door clicking closed behind you. Shudo's eyes flickered to meet yours, the beauty of his heterochromatic gaze filled with guilt. Hello, Wyn, he said, running a hand through his dual-colored hair. Before Izuku could finish his panicked stuttering, you had already enveloped him in a hug, a few tears pricking at your eyes. What were you thinking, going out and fighting him? Don't any of you know how dangerous that was? You exclaimed, squeezing him tightly. All was silent aside from your sniffling, the trio of boys swimming in the guilt of having worried you. I'm sorry, Wyn. Izuku began to tear up, holding you even tighter than before. I wasn't thinking. I won't do it again. You pulled away from him, brushing a few strands of hair from your face. Don't lie to me, you said, wiping away a few stray tears. We both know you would have done it again if you had the chance. He just laughed, the mood in the room lightening ever so slightly. And you too. You turned to face the other boys in the room. Ida immediately stood up, bowing. I am truly sorry, Midoriya-san. It was my fault for going off on my own so recklessly. You let out a strained laugh, getting to your feet. Ruffling his hair, you spoke again. Just don't do it again. I don't know what I would do if I lost one of you guys. You sniffled. Besides you and Izuku being the only two in the room who knew what was truly hidden behind those words, Ida nodded with a sharp grin. Of course. Now you turned to Shudo, though his gaze avoided yours. You walked up to him and, without a second thought, wrapped your arms around him. He, with a hint of hesitation, hugged back almost immediately. It seemed as if your touch was something he craved, holding you close as if you might disappear. After the two of you pulled away, you laughed. Why is it fair for you to get yourself in trouble, but when I do it, you have a fit? He didn't answer. Instead, he just stared at you with those brilliant heterochromatic eyes. Hey, Izuku? You turned to face him. When are you guys being released? Honestly, I don't know. We're all still waiting for the report from Ida's doctor about his arm. You looked at Ida. Tilting your head, you spoke. But what happened to his arm? Actually, about that, Midoriya. Ida said. I did get it back. The reaction was immediate. What? Are you okay? Izuku burst out, his emerald eyes trained on Ida's red ones. He shook his head solemnly. No. She said I might never be able to use it again. Everything went silent, all of your eyes glued on him. What? Wyn. Shudo called your name as you started down the hospital hallways. You turned around, smiling. What's up, Shudo? You asked, walking up to him. He looked away for a moment, rubbing the back of his neck with an unusual nervousness. I'm sorry for worrying you, he finally said. You laughed, wrapping your arms around the usually stoic boy. He hugged back without hesitation. Don't worry about it. I'm just glad you guys are safe. You pulled away, surprised to be greeted by a small smile. I promise I won't worry you again, he said, cupping your cheeks. In response to his actions, you felt them warm up, unusually high temperatures for you. You chuckled, surprisingly melting into the warmth and chill of his hands. I know that's a lie. You boys will never stop worrying me. Especially when you get into danger. Shudo's eyebrows furrowed. Then I won't get into any more trouble. If your cheeks could heat up any more, they would easily be able to melt through metal like a heated knife through butter. What? Your eyes widened, staring at his heterochromatic gaze. I won't get into any more trouble so you don't have to worry about me, he repeated, as if you hadn't heard him. It truly felt as if you didn't, given how unusual such emotional words were for him. You smiled. No, I know what you said, Shudo. I guess I was just taken aback by it. But isn't it proper that you ensure the people you care about don't worry about you? Your heart began to flutter at his words. Even though he didn't seem to be trying to give you a heart attack, his sincerity was undeniable. What do you mean by that, Sho? You sputtered, cursing yourself for the stammer. Your blush was almost too obvious for him to miss. It means, he removed his hands from your cheeks, his lips brushing against your skin. That I care about you. His smile brightened the hallway as he pulled away. If the sun wasn't enough, now you had the beautiful, smiling face of Todoroki before you. It was almost breathtaking. You felt your heart race, warmth flooding your cheeks as if they had been set ablaze. Seemingly pleased with your reaction, he turned towards the hospital room door, the white wood closing softly behind him as he disappeared from sight. After a few moments, you began to regain your composure. Your mind, in a futile attempt to replay what had just happened, sifted through the whirlwind of emotions and thoughts that had surged through you. You found this process challenging, especially as you felt a mix of excitement and nervousness inside. Taking a deep breath, you walked back down the almost unnaturally clean hallways, the world around you seeming to shimmer with an unrealistic brightness. Perhaps it was your newfound happiness that brought about such a change. Or maybe it was the anticipation of what was to come. It was hard to say. But one thing was clear in your mind. You certainly weren't alone anymore. Izuku's POV. I knocked softly on 𝕃𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚's door, not having heard any noise from the room for quite a while. After a minute, I creaked open the door, knowing well that Todoroki hadn't left. My eyes widened at the sight of them, 𝕃𝕚, resting on Todoroki's lap, both sound asleep. I let out a quiet chuckle, slipping in to toss my sister's blanket over the pair and placing a note on her desk before exiting the room. I walked over to Mom, who stood staring at me over the counter. "Well, why are they so quiet?" she asked. I smiled as I poured myself a glass of water. 𝕃𝕚 and Todoroki are just catching up on some missed notes, that's all, Mom. But 𝕃𝕚, you were never truly alone to begin with. It wasn't uncommon to find the half-and-half child rolling around in the grass, her half-HC and half-white hair becoming a tangled mess, leaves and blades of grass intertwined delicately in her strands. More often than not, she preferred outdoor activities much more than being inside with her mother and father. The girl's parents didn't mind, though. If she preferred to roll around with her imaginary friends, calling out the names of the creatures and people she had made in her head, who were they to force her away from it? It was her fun, not theirs. No, it was not the seclusion they worried about. It was the fact she had begged them to meet her new friends despite being unable to see them. She seemed to live for the hope her parents would take notice of her friends, but it seemed they could never truly see them. Little did they know, though, that it wasn't her imagination that brought upon the talking and playful demeanor. Instead, it was the creatures themselves that brought her excitement. They weren't in her head as her parents had assumed. One even had the same name as hers. Curly, bouncy white hair, too, almost matching the bubbly child perfectly. Others had gills and tails, while others bore scales and claws. She enjoyed spending most of her time with them. "Hey, Yuki," the child's mother called from inside the house, sliding open the patio door. "I've finished dinner. Your father should be home any minute." Her HC hair was tied back as she brushed her hands on the kiss the cook, apron tied around her waist. "Come inside. Help me set the table, will you?" The half-and-half child nodded almost too enthusiastically, getting to her feet with a giggle. Before she dared to run inside after her mother, she turned back to the white-haired girl she had been talking to. Her soft, white wings were tucked neatly behind her back, while her long, flowy locks of white cascaded down her shoulders and back. "Run along now, Yuki," she smiled, her blank white eyes closing as she beamed at the innocence of the child before her. "You wouldn't want to keep 𝕃𝕚 waiting." The girl nodded with an almost wistful smile before stumbling away and into the house. The girl with white hair watched joyfully as the child and her mother danced around the dining room table, one setting down plates while the other tossed down napkins and utensils. Before they had finished, the half-and-half child ran to the now-closed patio door, her fingers pressed against the cold glass. Her mouth moved as she called toward her mother, the woman sweeping her child into her arms. Her eyes gazed out the glass door, commenting something to the girl in her arms as she looked away, twirling the child around. The white-haired girl smiled softly as she stood up, the grass beneath her seeming to pass through her almost transparent. "Then let's make it official. From now on we're sisters. Sisters. Always and forever."